What's up, everyone? What's up, party people of Gohls? Welcome to the Season 4 entry draft. I see all kinds of people in the house coming into the show. Good to see everybody. My name is Dave Axis. I am your producer tonight. I am the owner of the Tennessee Black Bears, and I will be behind the scenes tonight. So let me introduce to you, if I may, the two gentlemen who will be your hosts for this evening. The first gentleman, I think everybody knows, he's been here quite a while. He's been here a minute, if you will, and his name is Ani Escola, aka Evan, the DC. He's one of the DCs, and he's also the owner of the Turku Fins. And we are glad to have him here again, just like last season. So, Evan, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming back again and doing it again this year. How you doing tonight, buddy?
Doing good. It's draft night. I'm pretty excited, hyped up. Glad to be here. Thanks for putting this together again, Dave.
Of course, bro. My pleasure. Also with us this season for the Season 4 draft is the owner of the Florence Firebirds, Squib to Chuck. Hopefully I said it right, Squib. Squib, how you doing? I know you as John, but apparently everybody else knows you as Squib. So Squib, welcome to the Season 4 draft. How you doing tonight, buddy?
Fantastic. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome to have both of you. This is where I go away and let you guys take it over. So Evan, you are more than welcome to kick things off, and I'll see you guys on the back end.
Awesome. Yeah, welcome in, everybody. It's draft night. It's been a long time coming, so we're excited to bring this show to you guys here. I'm just going to go over quickly the rules for tonight. Each team's going to have 5 minutes on the clock to make their selection. Their pick clock will start as soon as the pick before them is announced. There's going to be 75 total selections made this evening. Teams will fill their roster so that at the end of tonight, each team will end with 12 forwards, 6 defensemen, and 1 goaltender. Any player who's not picked tonight or who opted out of the draft will be eligible for the affiliation draft later this week, which will basically be players in the minors who will be tied to pro teams. So without further ado, the San Diego Reapers are on the clock with the first overall pick. Squibs, how you doing? What do you think? What do you think Matt Green is thinking here with this Reapers pick?
Well, I know he needs a lot of defense. So I know Matt needs a lot of defense. I definitely feel with this pick here, he's got to go defense. I mean, there's a lot of fantastic D-men at the top of this list right now. By overall, you got Raska Santagria right up there, Bobby Brownstone, Kevin Cushing. There's a lot of upper level overall guys right now who will be great for an expansion team, such as San Diego this year.
Absolutely, and obviously you were an expansion team last season. You had that first overall pick, and you picked Bo Diddle with it. Obviously, he's worked out pretty nicely. And with that, the Reapers pick has been made. It is left defenseman Raska Santagria. He has been selected by the San Diego Reapers. He played for the Moscow Snowhawks this season. We'll just get the draft board up here in a moment. So what are your thoughts on that pick of Raska Santagria?
Yeah, Evan, like I said, I was just saying, Oscar's right up there as I think the top rated D man. And as an enforcer, his thing that he's always seemed to talk about in the minors clubhouse has been wanting to fight. So I think Matt's got a really solid person for his blue line, somebody that'll really kind of lay down the beating, hopefully for any of the opposing teams that he plays against. And I can only imagine how pumped Raska is right now for it.
Absolutely. And with that, the Melbourne Marauders have gone on the clock. These video graphics Dave made for each team, they are pretty incredible. He made custom ones for each team, so keep an eye out for those every pick. And the pick has been made for the Melbourne Marauders here. So we'll fire up the draft board again, and that is left defenseman Kevin Cushing. out of Tokyo. Played for the Tokyo Tigers, a defensive defenseman, very active in the chats. He was the captain actually for the Tigers for the second half of the season after Alistair Lee got the call up. So a nice pick there. And that's going to throw the Cleveland Hounds on the clock with pick number 3 as we're flying through the early part of this draft. What are your thoughts so far, your Scripps?
Well, Evan, 2 seasons ago, when we had our first expansion, D-men were right at the top of the list. They were flying off the boards, defensive D-men especially. And so that trend is right back in style with Kevin Cushing, as well as, following right after Raska. D-man, right at the top of the list. Like I said, followed that season 2 draft. And so I assume that you have seen, but the third pick by the Cleveland Hounds has already been submitted. And with that, the right defenseman, Bobby Brownstone, I believe out of Tokyo as well, yes, has been taken by the Cleveland Hounds 3rd overall. So, when you want to, kind of dive into that, break that down while Albuquerque gets onto the clock.
Yeah, Brownstone. Oh, there's a flash of lightning to my left. Brownstone is a big body, a big physical defenseman. It's a nice pick for the Cleveland Hounds there. Should be a nice anchor to that defense that's already looking real scary with Eric Davis and Emraj Demko. There's a couple of big bodies, just to name a few. They got Frank Castle, and that defense core is going to be one to be reckoned with. While we wait for the Pharaohs pick, I believe we do have one of the owners of the Melbourne Marauders here. We also have Kevin Cushing, who is the 2nd overall pick to the Marauders. We'll maybe talk to him in a little bit, but Mikey Adams, if you're available, I'd love to have you hop on here and maybe give your thoughts on Cushing at number 2.
Yeah, figured it out. Sorry about that, boys.
All good.
What's going on, boys? Looking sharp,
Yeah.
Evan.
Thanks. Yeah. I wore a tie last year, and it's popular demand, so I had to bring it back. So, what are your thoughts on Cushing and bringing him into your locker room and adding him to that blue line you're forming there in Melbourne?
Well, obviously we already had 4D by the time we came out of the expansion draft, and as a defenseman myself, we strongly believe in getting a strong defensive core and head of the rookie goalie that we'll end up bringing in tonight. So we figure we really get a robust defense going, and honestly, no offense to Raska, but I don't think you could find a better defense in this class as Cushing. Probably one of the better builds as a defensive defenseman. I absolutely love the build, but as you guys said already, he's super active. Already had some chats with him about build advice and things like that, and I think he's going to be a great fit in our locker room.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he won that defensive player of the year in the minors this season, if I'm not mistaken. And that activity is huge.
Mikey, if you don't mind, how big of a role did Alistair Lee play into bringing Cushing in, since they were line mates there in Tokyo before Lee got called up?
To be completely honest, the initial part, not at all. As we kind of were finalizing our draft boards, I definitely was leaning on Lee a little bit, or the artist formerly known as Lee. I guess it's Shaboy Sean now. Definitely like the idea of pairing those two up long term. I think that's at minimum a second pairing, if not a first pairing, to demote me as regression kind of kicks in. And again, those two guys, both of them are two guys made of the same ilk, both solid builds and really active dudes. So I think it's going to be good to get them to back together and pair it up long term.
Yeah, for sure. Like I had, obviously, I'm heavily involved in the minors, so I had a lot of interactions with both of them. And Lee was with me in Turku for the season, and that's going to be a great long-term duo for you. Both great players, and that defense was part of the reason why Tokyo made such a deep run.
And I mean, honestly, when I was
playoffs.
Yeah, and honestly, when I was setting up my my first initial draft rankings, it was those two top of my list right off the get go. So to have one available in expansion and one available in the draft, I can't speak to how lucky I am that both of them fell to me.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for hopping in here. We are going to announce the next pick here. Squibs, did you want to take that one for you?
Yeah, with the 4th overall pick, the Albuquerque Pharaohs have taken Skar Skovall, center from the now Iceland Ice, but previously the Indianapolis Ice. Evan, what's your thoughts there on that?
Yeah, Scar's another real active guy. That's something we're seeing as kind of a theme here. early on, and that's not uncommon. Sorry, yes, as Glasgow goes on the clock with the 5th overall selection here. Yeah, activity going high in drafts is not uncommon in sim leagues. We see it all the time. And yeah, I mean, Scar is very active. You see him all the time in general and in the minors' rooms. And I think he has a connection with Kamenev there in Albuquerque as well. What are your thoughts on the pick?
I think it's a great pick. Cam has built up a fantastic defense core over there. So being able to focus now on, really finding a forward that can replace Alejandro since he joined Matt over in San Diego. I think that's a solid addition by Cam, and actually, know he's here ready to go. So if we want to bring him on, just maybe get a little bit more insight from Cam himself, so he can share a little bit.
Yeah, Cam, did you want to hop on and talk about the pick of Scar Scoville?
Yeah, sure, I can do that for you. I it was kind of a no-brainer for me once Kevin went off the board. It was either going to be Kevin Cushing or it was going to be Scar. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Um, the appeal for both was one, I could round out my defense with, and the other, as you mentioned, the loss of Alejandro and Bailey Harper in a recent trade kind of left me with some holes. So getting a solid quality pick to help fill back up that forward core is important for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, you guys are coming off your first playoff appearance. Took a game off the eventual champs. How much do you think a guy with a build like Scar, that physical build, is going to come in handy in getting you back into the playoffs next season?
I am a big sucker for big physical forwards. I think they have a huge, unappreciated role within the league. There's so much focus on being creative and getting around quickly, but you can't go anywhere quickly if you're on the ice with your butt, getting hit. So there's really something to be said about those power forwards, grinders, enforcers who can really just shut things down by laying out the hits.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, Glasgow takes a couple minutes here. Maybe we'll hop on with Kevin Cushing if you're around. If you want to talk about being picked number 2 overall. I know that was kind of in the cards ahead of time, but when did it really become a reality for you, and what are your thoughts on it?
I would say it didn't become real to me until I heard from other teams that Roscoe was going to be the pick in San Diego. A lot of teams reached out. San Diego was one of them. And when San Diego contacted me, I was like, wow, I feel like I would get more time on the ice there than I would anywhere else. I'm all for it. And so I thought they were pretty high on me. And it wasn't until later that I saw that they had other plans when they moved up to number 1. And at that point, I had 3 teams at 2, 3, and 4 who all really wanted me. And I didn't want to be one of those players who's like, oh, no, I want to go here. Because I didn't really know any of the GMs. So it wasn't like I had bad blood with any of them. And I wanted to give all of them the chance to prove they were worthy. So when every GM scouted me, I looked at their rosters. And, if I saw anything that didn't make sense, I would ask them about it. But I didn't say no to anyone.
Awesome. That's a great attitude. I'm sure the teams appreciated that. We did have a couple picks here come in, so maybe we'll talk to you some more in a little bit. But we've got the next 2 picks, but we'll announce the 5th overall selection here first, and then we'll let the Boston graphic go up. So that 5th overall selection is right defenseman Hunter Hurst Helmsley, or as he's better known in the league, Triple H. He's taken out of Moscow. And that'll put Boston on the clock. Like I said, their pick is in, but we'll talk about Triple H for a moment while that pick goes up. So Squibs, what are your thoughts on the Triple H pick? I for one love it. What do you think?
I agree, Evan. Seeing Triple H go there, our first offensive D man off the board. That's one of those builds that either people love or people are a bit hesitant on. Last year we saw a couple of guys, fall, unfortunately, because they were OFDs, just because teams had, 2-3 of them already on their roster, and we're hesitant to add, another guy like that. But I really think Triple H is going to fit in well there in Glasgow. I really think Jess is doing a great job at building, a very competitive team, even if he is playing in a division with the reigning champs. I really think Jess is doing a great job. So with that, we can announce the 6th overall pick by the Boston War Unicorns. As I mentioned, 6th overall pick is, I believe I'm saying this right, Chiboom Lassinger, goalie, Manitoba, if I'm not mistaken. With that puts Glasgow back on the clock, I believe. So, Evan, what is your take there on our first goalie off the board?
Yeah, Chiboom, however you say it, Lashinger. He came in a little late. He was actually a skater at first, I believe, and then a goalie spot opened up, and he took the opportunity, and then he really grinded for the last half of the season to get there. To get his makeup progressions in, and I think he earned all the way back to preseason or week 1. Really put in the efforts, and that's the type of activity you want to see. He's going to be watching the games, really grinding for those channel points. And I mean, 3 expansion teams needing picks or needing goaltenders. If you want your guy, if you have a certain one in mind, you're going to have to go ahead and get him now before these expansion teams pick again in a little bit and possibly steal your goaltender. What are your thoughts on seeing a goalie go this early? Last season we didn't see any for multiple rounds. 2 seasons ago we saw one 4th overall. So this isn't the earliest we've seen a goalie, but the earliest in a couple seasons. What do you think?
I mean, just with how our rules are, it really kind of falls on the supply and demand of the goalie needs. This off season we have 4 expansion teams, 3 needing goalies, with Drury returning and signing with Cleveland. Last offseason, there was only one team that needed goalie, and that was Vegas with bringing in Stonewall after Twin Screw took an expansion team. So, unfortunately, how the goalies go, it just supply and demand. But, I really think Eric has brought in a solid goalie. They're here, I believe, the highest overall goalie out of all the goalies available this draft. So, able to bring in a solid guy, and as you mentioned, just somebody who is very active and really worked on really just getting better. But with that, Glasgow's 7th overall pick is in, which is now putting Norfolk, I believe, on the clock. So, but with that, Glasgow, number 7 overall, takes left wing out of. Actually, Evan, I'm not going to say that one right. I believe it's Saskatchewan.
Saskatoon.
Saskatoon. I am sorry.
Saskatoon is in Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan's the province. The city of Saskatoon is where the team is based on.
I'm going to get a lot of flack by everybody for that. I know I'm just working on learning Canada. Actually, Evan, I want to give you a shout out for that. But with that pick, Nikolai Redding. So Evan, can you break down? I believe our first sniper off the board. If you want to talk about that some.
Yeah, for sure. I actually put in the wrong name by mistake there at number 7, but the draft board's now updated. Nikolai Redding, one of the top snipers in this class. There was 40-something snipers total eligible, so not a archetype you'd see really be a short of supply, I guess, but it is an important one. They are the ones who score the most, and Redding did a lot of that in the minors. I watched almost every game as I streamed all but one night of the minors season this season, and I mean, he was unbelievable. Anytime Saskatoon was down, you knew they had a chance because he could make something happen. Him and Scrub really had a dynamic connection there, and he put in quite a few goals with some nice hands. So, what are your thoughts on going sniper this early and Redding specifically?
Well, after looking at Jess's team, something that he really needed was some legitimate goal scorers, and Redding was one of those guys last year. Just really kind of lit it up in the minors. I know that there was a couple of teams throughout the season that really expressed interest in him whenever waivers came up, and he was just one of those guys that was always active in the minors. So Glasgow, once again, a very solid pick, a very active guy, and hopefully somebody who can contribute to the goal scoring category for him. But with that, Norfolk has submitted their 8th overall pick. Evan, if you want to kick that off.
Absolutely. Norfolk has selected, this is right defenseman Mike Mello out of Tokyo as well. So we're seeing another Tokyo defenseman go here in the first round. That makes 3 of them. As Turku, myself, I am on the clock. So we'll get my graphic up here in a second. But maybe you want to talk about your thoughts on another Tokyo defenseman go and kind of go from there.
Yeah, looking at Tokyo, they are the Florence Firebirds as well as the Las Vegas Sinners affiliate team. Of course, multiple different players play on this. Mello was a guy across the board that was very well liked and very well had a lot of interest, I should say. He was one of those guys that, after talking with some different minors people, he really busted his butt to, earn back some of those progressions to really kind of get him into a solid spot to really just better, make himself that legitimate D-man that he really kind of needed to be. So, I think he was a very solid selection by Norfolk there. And I think Norfolk, got a really solid person. So, let's see, after 2 Turku picks will be Alaska. So, Evan, I know you are working with your staff right now, so maybe we can get a little bit of speculation in here on who you might be going with. So, let's see. Fox, do you want to join in? Give a little bit of speculation on where Evan might be going with this.
Honestly, I really don't know. I haven't paid too much attention to Turku. I've been really racking my brain on who we were going to pick, and but it seems like Evan usually makes pretty good picks. So whoever he's going to take, it's they're going to be pretty happy playing over there.
Enough. Well, Fox, while I have you on the phone, can you break down your trade with Matt to drop from 1st overall pick to 3rd?
Yeah, we wanted to kind of move up a little bit. We had traded one of our future picks earlier to Albuquerque, and then we traded our 2nd round pick to Vegas, and we kind of wanted to move up a little bit more than just having 2 first round picks and then wait to the 3rd. So we dropped 2 spots, knowing that we could still get pretty much who we wanted, and moved up a whole round of picks for giving him the number 1 slot.
Thank you for sharing that. There's a ton of trades leading up to this draft. As a new GM, and really just as a new player into the league, with past minor season being your first one, what are your thoughts on the entire league with all the activity that we saw?
I love it. I'm in another sim league that doesn't do trades at all, so you don't see this kind of thing at all. And when I first learned there were trades, I was like, oh, it's interesting. I wonder how many occur. And boy, I found out there's a lot of them, especially in the off season. There, like you said, there's a flurry of trades. Everybody wanting to move positions, fall back, gain position, want to get a certain player. And I think it adds a lot of depth and a lot of excitement to the league.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I see Evan is here typing. I've seen a couple of people message what their thoughts are on Turku's picks coming up. I see some people saying Beastman, so he can play with his dad, Aaron Kozak, a recent signing by Turku. One of the top D-men, if not the best D-men in the league currently based on overall. And another prominent player that has been mentioned I see is Joshua Bolton, the 4th. We're anxiously waiting Evan's picks coming in. So a little bit of background on Bolton while we can. He is somebody who, when he sent over his player info, it was somebody that really cared about this league, really put in a lot of thought into who his player was, and somebody who really had kind of a backstory and kind of grew with his player, and throughout the years, based, of course, make up hopefully. So With that, as I was talking about Joshua Bolton, he was now taken 9th overall by Turku. And with that, Evan thankfully blessed us with the 10th overall pick as well, with Matthew Owsley, I believe, coming in as well. So that now will put Alaska on the clock. But Evan, can you break down your 2 picks, please?
Yeah, Bolton was one that's he's been on our radar for a while. We have a number of targets here in this draft, and we're kind of weighing which ones we might be able to wait a little bit later on. And it didn't seem like Bolton was going to be one of those because he's pretty active. The teams like him quite a bit. I actually play for a team that he owns over in the BBL, which actually you play on the team I own over there. Owners don't have to play for themselves over there, so I play for his team, the Chicago Bulls, in that league, and he's great over there, and really enjoy chatting with him. And that was one of the things he mentioned in our interview was that he really enjoys talking with me and would love to play for us. So it felt like a no-brainer to us. And then the other one that we picked there at number 10 is Matthew Owsley. Had some good conversations with him, not as in depth as Bolton, but you alluded to Kozak there when you mentioned his son, but Aaron Kozak actually did vouch for Owsley through another league as well. So we knew we'd be getting a positive addition to our locker room there, and somebody who can help with more scoring. So we're looking forward to those selections. And as I was talking, we have another pick come in as the Alaska Arctic Wolves have made their selection, and that is left winger Adam Wiseman from Tokyo. What are your thoughts on Wiseman going here? I think that's another sniper, if I'm not mistaken. Another scoring threat added to Alaska.
Yeah, before we do that, we'll make sure that Cleveland knows that they are on the clock now. So, but Wiseman is a fantastic choice there by Cleveland. Another one of those Tokyo guys that was active, all the very involved, and going to be one of the better snipers coming out of this class. So I really look forward to seeing how they progress. And with that, now we have our 12th overall pick in from Cleveland, which is left defenseman Bryant Dynasty from the now Iceland Ice. And you want to break that pick down for us?
Yeah, Bryant Dynasty, he's another active member. And really quick, I'm going to just mention Dublin Dragons. You are now on the clock. Bryant Dynasty, a super active person in the chats as well. I knew Cleveland, I think their owner or GM might have another connection with him from other leagues or just know him generally. And, he's got some personality, and I think that's going to be good in a expansion team locker room. You need something like that. And it'll be interesting to see how he helps with that defense core, which is looking scarier and scarier every day, and or with every pick they make here.
It's all about hair flips. It's all about hair flips with them.
Absolutely, hair flips in Hawaii.
Hair flips and hockey.
Yeah, hair flips and hockey in Hawaii, right? Yeah, so he's gonna be an active guy to bring in for sure. And with that, we have the 13th overall selection from the Dublin Dragons. Did you want to throw that one out there, Squibs?
I will do my best. I hope I'm saying this correctly. Center from the Atlantic Bucks, Pati. I believe a power forward, if I'm not mistaken. I know he's very highly rated on the physical forwards list created by the Gohls experts. Evan, can you give us a little insight about Pati and Dublin's pick there? And as we do that, Redwater will be on the clock.
Yeah, I think it's Plata is in like slang for party. I think that's what he was going for with his name there. But yeah, another active person. He's actually going to be venturing into the coaching realm this season as he picked up a job coaching the Warsaw Warlocks, a new minor league team next season. That will actually be Dublin's affiliate, if I'm not mistaken. So he'll get to kind of help mold the future of Dublin by taking care of some of their prospects. And, he's an active person that, that's going to be a great addition to the Dublin locker room. And, good to see him go here. He's highly rated, of course, for sure. But, what are your thoughts on Dublin adding another physical presence? Obviously, they have the Bob there, but kind of adding some physicality to that dangerous offensive team.
As a power forward myself, I always love seeing it when other power forwards and other physical D men go, or my fault, physical off forwards go. Early on, when I was around my very first season, there were some questions about my build. At that time, I was an enforcer and switched to a power forward after that off season. Nothing against enforcer builds, but I wanted to build myself like Brady to Chuck, hence the name Squibbles to Chuck. So power forwards have always have a special place in my heart. So seeing a guy who is going to go to a very offensive focused team, he'll be able to provide that physical presence that they need. Probably play some on their PK, and especially after losing multiple two-way D-men or two-way forwards. From Dublin, they will definitely need that physical presence.
Absolutely, for sure. And now with Redwater on the clock, as we wait for that pick, maybe we'll bring in Fox again if he's available to talk about, I guess, the pick of Bryant Dynasty. I don't see Eric in the chat, so we'll have Fox come in and talk about that selection and I guess what went into that decision.
Well, first of all, I don't think Eric has a voice because I've never heard him speak either.
I've heard him a couple times.
Yeah, we wanted Dynasty bad. I've known him for a couple of years. He's a great guy. We kind of figured he might go pretty early, so a lot of people started talking about us getting him early, and we thought, well, we do need more defense. So maybe if people think we're getting him early, he'll drop, and we'll be able to get two good defensemen. And that's exactly what happened. It seems like it paid off.
Yeah, somebody who I think was being mocked like in the top 4 or so picks. I don't think I saw a mock with him falling outside the top 8 from the experts over the last 10 days or so. So yeah, it's certainly a nice value there to get him that late if you take the mocks at face value.
Yeah, we sorry to interrupt you there.
No, all good.
We were pretty we had the 17th pick in the round, and we traded up to 12th, and we thought, you know what? Based on team needs, we kind of thought that he might fall if we didn't take him in, at third. So we kind of gambled on that, and glad to see that it paid off because he's a great teammate.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a gamble anytime you think that you should take somebody and you wait a little bit. Same with trade backs and trade ups. You never know if it's going to pay off, but good thing for you guys it did. Squibs, did you have any thoughts on that or anything for Fox?
Not right now. Fox, thank you for jumping on here. Once again, great selection by Bryant, and by seeing all the reactions on that pick, it's a very solid pick. So,
steal of the draft, baby. Steal of the draft.
When other owners, GMs, and such react bit negatively to a pick, you did something well. So, congrats to Bryant, congrats to yourself, and as well as Eric. So, but with that, the 14th pick by Redwater is in. I'll redeem myself a little bit here. A right winger out of Saskatoon, Sponge Scrub, taken 14th overall, which will now put Florida on the clock. Evan, can you break down that pick for us?
Yeah, I love the pick. I honestly thought he'd go a little bit sooner. The one knock against Scrub is his size. He's a little bit on the smaller side of things. But he is a Dave. Yeah, you clicked. There you go. Clicked the wrong graphic, but that's all good. Yeah, so he's on the smaller side, but man, is he dynamic. He's a threat anytime he has the puck with him. So yeah, you got to watch out. And not only that, but he's extremely active. He coached the Saskatoon Farmers to a lot of success this season. And he's returning to coach them again next season, even though he's making the jump to the pro level. So for a team, I don't know what Redwater's staff situation is like, but any team that was looking at adding staff in this draft, Scrub would have been high on their board for sure. But yeah, that's a great pick. Maybe we'll bring in Cornwall. Looks like he's in the chat if he's available to talk. And I actually got a couple of trade offers coming in. So Squibs, if you don't mind kind of taking the lead with Cornwall there.
Yeah. Cornwall, are you available? Cornwall, can you hear me? All right.
Hear me now? Yeah.
All right. Cornwall, break the pick down for us.
We want scores. We need to score goals. We didn't do that last year.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
After a playoff run this year, if I remember correctly, exit in the first round. What I got to assume that your aspirations are higher than that. What are your plans for this coming season? Where do you hope to end up at?
We're hoping to get top 4. Just build on what we were able to do last year, and just get better.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Great pick there by Scrub.
Thank
With
you.
that, I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about Florida's pick. Pick 2B, I should say. Florida Challengers only need one player here. This will be their only pick of the evening. Trev has been really trying to get a playmaker, so I got to assume that he's going to go with a playmaker here. More than likely a playmaking center. So if you're out there watching it and you're a playmaking center, hopefully you will see your name called here shortly. But otherwise, shortly after Florida will be on the clock, it will go to Boston for the second to last pick of the draft. So, Eric, I anticipate that you are ready and prepared as we sit here and anxiously wait Trev's pick. But while we wait, let's bring in CGQ. I believe they're from Tennessee. CGQ, if you're on, you want to jump on and let me know. All right. All right, so no CGQ. Let's see. I'll bring in Joey Rab. Are you able to jump on, Joey? Oh, Joey. All right. Well, now we're 0 for 2. CGQ. Oh, a little bit of technology issues there by CGQ. Maybe. All right. Seems like we're having some technical issues there. So carry
Am I on?
on. Yeah. Is that
Okay.
Oh.
I figured out technology. It was a pain.
Joey? You and technology.
I know.
All right. So you had the 10th pick
Pulled
the other
apart.
day. You and Adam Banks there in Jacksonville had the 10th pick. You traded down to the 17th pick. You want to share any insight into that trade and why you ended up making that?
And I think I had a different plan than Banks, but I like where we ended up. I was thinking we could try to get a couple picks in the first round because there were so many players this draft that could have been number 1 overall picks. And we were definitely hoping to be able to get multiple in the first round, but dropping back to 17, we might be able to pull that trigger. Last pick of the first round and an earlier pick in the second round now.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Joey. Not to cut you off, but Florida has made their selection, so we will kick to Boston War Unicorns to make their pick, the 16th pick. But with the 15th overall pick of this draft, Florida has selected center Nathaniel Ironsides out of Manitoba. Ironsides is definitely one of those guys that could have gone a lot earlier in this draft, but as Joey mentioned, there's a ton of talent, a ton of top talent that really could get anywhere throughout the draft. So after I spoke with Ironsides myself, and he was a fantastic conversationalist, fantastic person, and definitely somebody who wanted to be as a team player, as a leader for his team, and really kind of distribute the scoring. And so when asked for a real life player comparison, he said he believed that he'd be like Nick Fogliano. Probably going to get made fun of again, but hey, what we get for asking the guy who doesn't know how to pronounce hockey names onto the show. So Yeah, I mean, Evan, if you're back, I want to ask your thoughts on it, but
Yeah, for sure. Ironside's he's again another one of those super active ones. Kind of a trend we're seeing here in the first round, as in all sim leagues. And he's the type of guy that he'll reach out to you. He'll let you know what he thinks. He checked in with me numerous times throughout this draft process, and he's got a real talented player. Just wasn't the build we were looking for at 9 or 10, but Florida's got a real nice piece here, and you hate to see it from a team that just went to the Cup final, but luckily next season they'll be in the opposite conference from us, so we won't have to worry about them until the Cup final if we get there. But and same thing for you as well, down the road as we look to compete with the new divisional format. Yeah, like what are your
Evan,
thoughts? Oh, go ahead.
I was actually going to ask while we wait for Eric's pick. Can you break down the decision to move to divisions and conferences from the league staff side?
Yeah, for sure. It was something we talked about for a long time, and it didn't really make sense before we got to 16 teams. But now with 16 teams at 4 divisions of 4 each with 2 conferences of 8, it kind of balanced it out nicely with a 50-game season. It really helps with scheduling as well because it makes it where you can play 6 games against your divisional teams, 4 games against each team within your conference from the other division, and 2 games against the teams from the other conference each. So it kind of helped with balancing out that schedule a little bit without any sort of real randomness to it, which made it a little bit more fair, a little bit more interesting, and now we're going to see some nice rivalries, whether it's location based or whatever the case is. It's going to be a lot of fun being in these divisions and competing against each other. Our division's the only one that doesn't have an expansion team. That's you, Florence, myself, Turku, and of course Dublin and Glasgow. What are your thoughts on competing in, on paper, what might be the toughest division, but the only one without an expansion team for sure?
Well, Evan, Dublin just won, so always being in a conference and playing against the uh, reigning champions is always a tough bounce. Uh, but they did lose quite a bit of firepower with Heather Gray leaving. But unfortunately, they went out and signed Grizzly Bear, so they got a little speedster. If I remember correctly, maybe the MVP from this last season. Evan, you can confirm that or correct me if I'm wrong. But Dublin retooled for any of the guys really they lost, and they're hopefully going to have a very fantastic draft here to on those holes. And then you got yourself, who went out and signed some of the top defensive free agents in the class. And these past 3 seasons, you guys have always pretty much been a offensive scoring threat. So I can't never really count you guys out. And your defense only got stronger. And then to this point, Glasgow has had a fantastic draft. And I think Jess is really building a quality squad over there. So I'm really excited for our level of competition here, and I think it'll be a fantastic season for our division as well as Gohls in general. But with that, the 16th overall pick is in from Eric Newton and the Boston War Unicorns. This will put Jacksonville on the clock with the 17th and final selection of round one. Boston War Unicorns select left defenseman Donald Cronwall from the Iceland Ice. Evan, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, Cronwall, he's a defensive defenseman, and we saw, sorry about that, we saw that defensive defensemen were really kind of sought after a couple seasons ago, and now the market has kind of cooled on them. Sorry, my mouse isn't working. There we go. I got the draft board there. Yeah, so the market's kind of cooled a little bit on defensive defensemen, but they're still incredibly valuable. I think the only reason it cooled a little bit was because not a whole lot of teams had them at first, and we all kind of raced to get them, and now teams are starting to fill out that role a little bit. And yeah, Cronwall is a big physical defenseman. He's going to be real tough to play against. Luckily, he's going to be in the other conference as we were just talking about divisions. But yeah, that's another big body defenseman that you don't really want to go up against as some of the small players in this. So yeah, it's going to be a force on that Boston blue line, and these expansion teams, man, they're filling out real nicely.
Well, Evan, not to cut you off, but we do have a couple of picks in With this 17th pick from Jacksonville, I'm actually going to kick it to Joey Rapp to make the announcement if he is available.
Yeah, hey, you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, Joey, you're good.
Perfect,
Let us know.
perfect. Yeah, I think some teams are going to regret this pick the day after the draft. Jacksonville Vipers are officially bringing shower hockey to the pros, and with our selection, we are proud to draft the man, the myth, the suburban legend, Colin Field from the Saskatoon Farmers.
Now,
Had-
Joe, if you want to stay on for just a moment, I will announce the first pick of the second round, and we'll come back to you to talk about your pick. So with the first...
Hold up. Let's get the Alaska graphic up there.
All right, actually, we'll come back for that. Joey, break down said pick.
All right.
We had a little bit of idea switch. So Joey, break that pick down from us or for us.
Yeah, we felt that Colin, based on his build, sniper, quick. I think he underperformed this season in minors. He only had 4 goals all season. He did have double-digit points, and he did help that team. That was one of my favorite teams to watch in the minors, aside from the ice. But we feel that with Colin on the Vipers, on top of the remaining draft picks that we're going to be signing, we really feel that this is going to be the year that Jacksonville goes from the underdog to a serious competitor and a potential, cup hoister.
Thank you. Best of luck this coming season. And Evan, I'll kick it over to you.
Yeah, so now we will announce that Alaska Arctic Wolves selection. And just like the fuel one, I think was a little expected with the previous connection there. This one, Buffalo Bottom, going to the Alaska Arctic Wolves, right winger from the Indianapolis Ice. I believe he works with Krieg, and so there's just a little bit of a connection there. This is going to put Melbourne Marauders back on the clock, the second pick of the second round. Now that we've passed round one. So I mean, Buffalo Bottom, great player. And then obviously when you have a connection like that with a player of that caliber, obviously you got to make the pick when you get the opportunity, and it makes sense. So nice pick here for Alaska. What are your thoughts?
With the last 2 picks, you see Fuel and then Bottom, both being guys that are connected to the owners. I really think that carries, a decent amount of weight with guys, already having connections, whether it's real life or in person, or real life or in person, same thing, real life or online connections. Being able to just kind of bring those people in. If you already know them, they're going to be active, they're going to be solid contributors. And so both Jacksonville and Alaska bringing those type of guys in are going to go a long way for them. So great picks by both of them. I'm not mistaken, snipers by both. So great, just scoring threats for both of them, hopefully. So I'll kick it back to you, Evan.
Yeah, some scoring threats. They scored a decent amount of the minors. I know Rab mentioned Fields 4 goals in the minors. That it might be a little higher than that. The last 3 weeks or so of the minor stats weren't tracked as accurately, just because there wasn't the help. So he might have actually had a little bit more than that. So definitely a scoring threat, along with Bottom. So some nice picks there. With that, the Melbourne selection is on the clock, and that is center from Moscow, J.W. Doyle, a power forward. So another physical forward coming off the board. A nice selection there by Melbourne. He's going to be a nice force to be reckoned with, and that will put the Cleveland Hounds on the clock next. What are your thoughts on Doyle? I know he's an active member in the community and on the Twitch channel. What are your thoughts overall on that pick as a person and a player?
Doyle's a fantastic pick there by Melbourne. Needing, just kind of creating a locker room presence will go a long way. And I think Mikey is working on building that, with guys like Lee, guys like Doyle, as well as, quite a few other guys that he's already brought in, like Jake Molyneux from the expansion draft. So I really think, creating a stable and fun locker room will always bring in more people. So, I think Doyle there's a fantastic selection as a player or as a person and as a player, that the physicalness that forwards can provide as a power forward can go a long way. So with that, the third overall pick is in from the Cleveland Hounds. The Hounds select left winger Johnny Gamble of the Iceland Ice. With that, it'll put Melbourne back on the clock with the fourth overall selection. So I'm not sure if
Fourth pick
Fox
of the
is still
second
here.
round, 21st overall, fourth pick of the second round.
I totally probably butchered that. I was going with it. Fox wants to jump on and talk about the gamble pick and taking that gamble. Fox, break it down for us.
Yeah, we took the gamble. I've known Johnny for a couple of years too. I know he's in my phone under contacts. Talked to him a couple of weeks ago. Sometimes we spend an hour or two on the phone. He's a really good guy. He's got a great build. He's a fantastic locker room presence, and he's really a good leader that I think is going to be happy in Cleveland for a lot of years to come.
Thank you, Fox. Let me go ahead and announce the fourth pick of the second round, 21st overall by Melbourne. That would be left wing Boomer Phillips, also from the Iceland Ice, which will put Turku, I believe, back on the clock. Actually, with the fifth overall pick of the second round, a pick that we originally had here in Florence that we decided to trade a couple of days ago. So, breaking that down from our end, just because I know not a lot of people are going to ask me for that, but working with Evan Pryor and just kind of talking with him, we knew he wanted to make a move up to potentially land some people that they wanted, really kind of get. And we have only 2 openings on our squad, so we made a trade with Boston a couple days prior to move down in the third round. We believed that we could work in the second round with what some of the Gohls experts had mocked, as well as what kind of we were seeing and how we were feeling with our needs, and just kind of making that move down for us. We felt comfortable with making that jump, and being active on the trade market, as we've talked about multiple times, is huge for us, as well as huge for the league. So as we wait, I don't know if Rose is available to jump on. Rose, are you there? Sounds like a no. Kamenev, you want to jump on?
Sure.
Sure. All right. I know that you've made quite a bit of trades in this draft. Can you talk about that for us?
I only made one trade in this draft, and it was actually for that Boomer Phillips pick that just got made. I traded the 2.04, which used to be Tennessee's second round pick that I got in a trade way back in season 2. But the idea for that trade was, this is a very deep draft. One pick isn't going to make or break a team. And the haul we got back for that, we got a season 5 first, we got a season 6 first, and we got a season 6 second from an expansion team. I count that a win all day in my books because both of those first round picks are likely going to be high lottery picks, which sets up our future very nicely when we start running into cap issues with our defense.
Fair enough. Well, thank you. I will actually kick it over to Evan to announce his 5th overall pick. Evan, take it away.
Yeah, so with the 5th pick of the second round, we are taking center Aaron Almirati from the Sydney Whales. I hope I pronounced that right. I don't know. Aaron, I will get your name right one day while you're playing for the Finns. But, he's a right-handed sniper, something we need. We need some right-handed scoring ability for sure. I think last season we only had 3 or 4, and handedness isn't everything, but it really helps in certain situations. And bringing in that right-handed forward is great, and that'll put Glasgow on the clock. And I just wanted to touch on the Melbourne pick from right before mine. Boomer Phillips. We were talking about connections with owners. That's another one. I know in my interview with Boomer, he mentioned being friends with Mikey Adams, and so it's another one of those situations where you see if you know somebody really well outside of this league, or even getting to know through this league, those sort of connections and friendships, they're going to be active. They're going to be worth something to your team, and and it's great to see those connections coming together and not missing on those picks. So, did you have any thoughts on where you think Glasgow might be going here, Squibs?
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they only need forwards from this point on out. So I got to assume that is true. Jess will probably go sniper again, even though he went Reading in the first. I really think Glasgow could benefit and use some sniping power, really. And this class is deep with snipers, so I definitely feel, might be leading that way. But actually, without further ado, Jess has just announced the 6th overall pick. Right wing Flame Dragon from Saskatoon. With this pick, that'll now put Jacksonville back on the clock. So as we wait for Jacksonville's pick, Evan, do you want to talk about Flame Dragon?
Yeah, Flame Dragon was somebody who came in a little bit later, I think, in the season. Not super late, not as late as a lot of the players we saw come in this week, but one of those later joiners, kind of back half of the season. So I don't know as much about him as I know about some of the rest of the class that I kind of had a whole season to spend with. But I do have to say, from what I saw, he was a pretty effective player on the ice. Scored a decent amount. I think he's in a few other sim leagues as well. So he's kind of got that history. I could be wrong about that, but if I'm right, then he's got that sort of like history and experience in these types of leagues. So I think that's going to be a nice pick for Glasgow down the line as a team that was one day away from making the playoffs last season, and I think that with the right moves here, bringing in some active players, they could be right there in the mix of things again next season.
So, Evan, we have the 7th overall pick in by Jacksonville. They didn't want to wait too long to make the announcement. A left wing Liam Cody from the Iceland Ice. I have to assume that Joey played a part in recruiting there since he was the head coach of Indianapolis Ice last year. So, if you want to talk about that pick and talk about the role that the minors coaches have on some of these younger prospect and players.
Yeah, Liam Cody, for starters, that's later than I expected him to go, just based on pure talent. And I had some positive conversations with him. We decided to go other routes with our picks, but he's the kind of player that he has the puck on his stick and he's dangerous. He scored some nasty breakaway goals, scored a hat trick in the minors. He ended a game, I think, in a shootout during the showcase over the last few days. So it's definitely one to watch out here, as our producer Dave is on the clock with Tennessee. And as minors commish, I get to work closely with a lot of the minors coaches and players, and it's the impact they have is noticeable because they're really like the first line of communication that these teams, that these players have with people in the league, aside from the commissions that kind of help welcome them in. And I think that you're seeing that a little bit with, Matt Green was a coach in Moscow last season before he became an owner, and he took Raska Santagria first overall. Now you're seeing Jacksonville with Joey Rabb recently promoted to co-owner partway through the season. He was coaching the minors last season and grabbed Liam Cody from Indianapolis. So you're seeing these connections starting to come through, and it's not everything, but when you have that kind of bond and that sort of trust already, I think it does play a big role in those relationships and those picks. Okay, yeah. So Dave said, he needs a little bit of time here. So, I mean, Tennessee's on the clock now. They need 4 players. They didn't have a first round pick after trade a couple seasons ago to get Biff Markham. So we'll see what they do here with their first pick of the draft. After that, we're going to see Albuquerque on the clock for a couple picks in a row. Squibs, did you have any sort of thoughts? I know your pick's coming up in a few, so you might be starting some discussions. But did you have any thoughts on what Tennessee might be doing here, in your opinion?
Well, Same time, we are also working on some trade discussions ourselves. So as we're sitting here hosting, people are able to see it live that trades are constantly being talked about, just discussed. So it's very interesting, just in general. But for Tennessee, they have three D-men who are 80 overall exactly, and one that's 74th, Dave that himself. So having, just needing a third pair or a set of third pair D-men, as well as then some forwards, I definitely feel like he's going to probably lean forward here first, and then possibly, with guys that are very active down there, with Gunny, Fab Freddy, Biff Markham, as well as, a host of the other guys on his team. I feel like he might target, a higher overall forward, somebody that's going to help his offense, and then look to supply his defense at third pairing with guys who are a bit more on the active side, guys who, right now the overall might not show it, or their play might not show it at the moment, but their presence in the locker room, as well as their presence in the Twitch chats, might carry that. So that's how I think Tennessee will go. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, we've seen the last 8 picks have been forwards, so there's a bit of a run here. So they might be looking at trying to get one before the whole second round fills up with forwards. Who knows? But yeah, there's plenty of talented players on both sides here, whether you go forward or on the blue line. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do either way. There's some big names still on the board, some real threats. I will quickly touch on the draft props. I haven't been, keeping up with all of them live on air. I usually check them after. But one of the draft props we put in the poll I released today was over under 6.5 defensemen in the first round. By my count, it looks like we had 7. So that bar was set pretty accurately, and it did hit the over for anybody that submitted a poll this morning slash afternoon on the draft props. So you know, a decent number of defensemen going in the first round. We saw one goaltender, and then obviously the 9 forwards. So, what are your thoughts, I guess, on the progression we've seen in the drafts? Our season 2 draft, was our first true entry draft of this format, saw a lot of defensemen go early. Season three's draft saw a lot of forwards going, and now we're kind of seeing a nice mix as teams fill different needs. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's really supply and demand. Like we talked about 2 seasons ago, there was a host of teams coming in. I think, if I'm not mistaken, there was 4 expansion teams then, so we went from 6 to 10, and so there was very kind of an odd area with everybody being free agents after season 1. So a lot of movement, not a ton of expansion drafts happening during that time. So um, it was challenging for those teams that needed to fill a lot of spots, and a lot of those spots were D-men, just because a lot of them stuck around with their teams. Last year, we saw a little bit more of a mix. So um, forwards being taken early, and I think a lot of that was, once again, D-men were just kind of hanging out, with their teams and such. And there's only 2 teams that had expansion, and I know Mike and I were able to grab quite a few D-men in the expansion draft. So um, this year, it's the expansion draft went how it went. Not a ton of teams needing a lot of D-men, so that's why teams are able to kind of focus and prioritize needs that they have. So, but with that, the 8th overall pick of the second round is in. The Tennessee Black Bears select right wing Chris Panarin from the Atlantic Bucks. Evan, can you talk about that pick?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so we're not gonna have Dave talk about it right away while he gets caught up on some stuff, but Albuquerque's gonna be on the clock next. Yeah, so Chris Panarin, Tennessee. One thing that's been evident since they came into the league and had that change of ownership is they've really prioritized activity, and they have a really active and positive locker room. Even though they had a rough season, didn't end up with a huge amount of wins or anything like that. They were a pretty positive team. They always showed up and watched their games. So seeing that activity level from a team like that, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with in a season or two. when these active players stick around and start to progress. For a team near the bottom of the standings to only have 4 openings is a huge nod to the ownership and the staff that he's been able to put together there in Tennessee. So, adding another active player in Chris Panarin, I think Chris might have thought he might have gone a little higher based on pure talent in this class. But like we've said all along, this is a very deep draft class. So it's impossible to predict really who's going to go where. And I think that this is a great pick for Tennessee. He's going to be a great talent for them to bring in. He's going to score quite a few goals. And, he might have to start a little lower in the lineup, but I think with his activity, he's going to be a force to be reckoned with down the line. What are your thoughts on the Panarin pick?
I think kind of actually what I was saying when I was anticipating what Dave might do. That's taking one of those forwards that is going to have a ton of talent, ton of skill, and Panarin definitely showcased that throughout the playoffs, throughout the minor season. Once again, it was just a very deep class of snipers, and so with team needs being a major thing and whatnot. So that's probably part of the factor that why he fell. And as we already seen, there's quite a few connections of forwards with team owners. So another reason probably why he fell. So Tennessee did get a great talent and a great player there. And so hopefully they can, use his skills properly. Having guys like Gunny and Fab Freddy there in the forward room will always help forwards grow, hopefully to their full potential. I know both of them are great people, Gunny and Fab Freddy, that is. So I really think it's a fantastic move, fantastic pick there by Tennessee. So not sure if CGQ is available to jump on or not. I know Dave is working, so. CGQ, you available? All right.
There we go. Can you guys hear me now?
There he is. Yeah.
There we
All right,
go.
sorry about that.
So we'll have CGQ come on here, and then maybe we'll get Dave in a few minutes as well to talk about that pick. So CGQ, what are your thoughts on bringing another active player like Panarin in and what he might be able to do for your offense?
So you guys kind of covered it a bit where we're looking for active people in the locker room, and Panarin just seems to fit that perfectly. We were lucky and fortunate enough to only have 4 spots open on our team, so we're able to keep most of our core together. And Panarin just seemed to fit perfectly with what we're doing, especially with Gunny and Freddie. I'm looking forward to seeing Panarin develop and grow on our team too.
Yeah, playing him with some of those top playmakers like that is going to make him a real dangerous piece for your guys' offense for sure.
Oh, most definitely. Especially how he tore it up in the minors. I'm so excited about this pick. I've been eyeing him for a while now.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe what we'll do is have. Sorry about that. Well, let's get maybe Dave to come on here and Squibs if you want to talk to Dave for a couple minutes. Looks like we might have a trade coming in, so I'm gonna hop off, deal with that while you guys chat about.
Hey, sorry, working the trade lines myself, Evan. So.
It's getting frantic, right? It's getting frantic here right now. Let me tell you.
Dave, can you talk about Panarin pick and just really everything that's happening? You see both Evan and I kicking around, jumping around, working on the trades, working on everything. Can you talk about that from your perspective as being kind of a newer owner?
So last season, everybody knows I inherited a team that didn't have any picks, and we had the lowest overall team value in the entire league. And what we did is we started building the locker room. We started building it with people over players first, and to get a solid locker room, get people who wanted to be in Tennessee and stay in Tennessee. We got Gunny to come over, and our with Biff and CGQ now helping me with the trades, with talks, with recruiting, all of that, it's gone a lot smoother this year. And what's great about that is that we traded. We got a free agent in Albert Begin to help shore up our defense. Like you guys mentioned earlier, we have 3 defenders, 80 or above, and I'm coming up on 80. So our defense is solid. If you look at our season, last season, we lost a lot of really close games, right? We lost in overtime a lot. We lost a lot of 1-goal games. So we shored up our defense, and we needed some more offense. And this pick fits the offensive part and what we're trying to do offensively perfect.
All right, so it looks like Squibs is busy for a second. Here, I can. Sorry about that.
Is the pick in?
Yeah. So we do have a pick to announce. We'll get to that first. It's been quite a hectic couple minutes here with picks, with trades. Sorry. A lot of confusion, but so anyway, Albuquerque has made their first of their 2 picks, and that is left defenseman Donnie Brook from from Atlantic Bucks. So that's going to be their second pick of the 9th round. Kamenev, I see you're still in the chat, so maybe let's get you to hop on and talk about that pick. Oh no, sorry, he's actually still on the clock. So
Can you wait a little bit?
yeah, so he's on the clock again. So let's maybe get Rose. Are you available to talk about, I guess, your thoughts on the Donnybrook pick and kind of how the draft has unfolded so far? Is Rose here?
Hey, yep, I'm here.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Can
So
you guys hear me? I just want to make sure you guys can hear me.
yeah, I can hear you. So what are your thoughts on that Brook pick, and I guess how the draft has unfolded to this point?
Yeah, no, I think it's is looking good. The Donnybrook pick is a good pick for Albuquerque. I mean, they definitely focus on defensive defensemen and defense is their strong point for their team. So I mean, he definitely fits perfectly as a big defensive defenseman on the team. Speed will definitely be a hindrance starting out, but with the rest of the team, I think he'll be able to make up for it just on his size.
Awesome. Yeah, sorry about all the confusion here, guys. We just had a trade that we will announce in a second. Albuquerque was involved for a moment. They're not anymore, so they are still on the clock with about 3.5 minutes left here. So while they make their pick, I will announce the trade that was made. Although we've got a bunch of chats here. Here it is. So it was actually between our co-host here, Squibbles Kachuk, and his Florence Firebirds have made a trade with the San Diego Reapers. Let me just see. So Florence is sending pick number 213. So the 13th pick of the second round is going to San Diego. In exchange, Florence will be receiving the first pick of the third round, as well as a season 5 first round pick. So now that is settled, Albuquerque is still on the clock. They did not end up getting the trade. He's typing his pick. But Squibs, did you want to talk for a second about that trade with San Diego? Now that the dust hasn't really settled, but things have been sorted out. What are your thoughts on I guess that move that you made and the reasoning behind it?
Well, so Matt and I had talked. I believe yesterday I put it on to the trade block after we made the trade, Evan, to land me 2.13. So Matt and I had talked about it. And after we had traded back, we were sitting there watching. We of course we need 2 D-men. So we were really high on Donnie Brook, sorry, and we were really wanting to grab him. Unfortunately, he went right before. We were hoping, and I knew, Matt and I were talking that entire time that he had something possibly lined up for 2.10, as well as with us. And so we were waiting to see what would happen. Brooke went, and so we quickly shifted gears, made that trade. In total, I mean, we dropped back 23 total spots. So from 2.5 to 2.13, and then 2.13 to 3.1, and 3.5 down to 3.14. So 23 total spots. We picked up 2 season 5 firsts, 2 season 5 seconds, and a season 6 first, if my math serves me correctly. So, I mean, making these trades, for us, we really wanted to kind of go a long way, in helping our trade, hopefully value or trade assets for the future, as well as in any potential draft picks in the future, with anything that might need to happen. So came into this draft prep with only a second rounder and of course third rounder for this year, and no picks next year, and then our 2 picks in season 6, and now we're leaving with 2 in the first and second round of next year, and an extra 1 in season 6. So definitely shout out to Matt, yourself, Turku, and Boston, Eric, for working with us this week, as well as everybody else making the trades. It's definitely made the league as a whole exciting. So that's our thought process behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. Building up that future capital is only going to be an asset for you moving forward. And if you knew you'd be able to get your guys there, then I mean, all the power to you for making those trades and really building up that really spending money. You could look at draft picks as at times. So yeah, some nice moves there. And with that, the Albuquerque pick is on the clock, or has been made, sorry. And that is Dexter Hall, left winger out of the Indianapolis Ice, the soon to be Iceland Ice. Yeah, so great pick there. Another forward for Albuquerque. Obviously, with that Brook pick, they made it so they only need forwards here on out the rest of the way. And that's going to put Redwater on the clock. We'll get their graphic up. Kamenev, now that I'm not calling on you when you're on the clock this time, what are your thoughts on the Brook pick and the Dexter Hall pick here
Well,
as you guys fill out your roster?
first and foremost, I just want to say, Squibs, that was awful. I almost got 2 first-round picks out of that trade. Um, but I mean, the Brook pick was obvious to me. As I think people were saying, I don't remember who it was, but our biggest strength as a team is our defense. With Max Fowler at I think almost 85 overall, we got Ron Gohls at 80. We've got Valentin Constantine at an 80, and Chris McAllister almost at a 75. Our defense is just stacked, and we want to continue that strength because defense wins championships in my eyes. As for Dexter Hall, I actually know him. He's a part of my crew in the USFA. He is a GM over there for the Arizona Rattlers, and you know we've had a great relationship for years now. It's kind of a no-brainer that I pick him up.
Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier with our the connections the teams have with their players. And I didn't mention it earlier, but obviously with Turku, I've got my wife, I've got one of my childhood best friends, I've got people I know from fantasy leagues and other leagues and stuff. So when you build that locker room with people that you know and that you trust, it kind of yeah, it really helps build that locker room and build that team up and kind of give you some hope for the future. So with that, we do have the 11th pick of the second round is in the Redwater Undertakers of Redwater, Texas. By the way, for all you new people, there's a lot of questions whether it's Alberta or Texas. It is Redwater, Texas. They have selected Optimus Klein, left winger of technically, I guess, of the Alberta Prospects. He is a new player. I don't think played a single game for Alberta, but he did play in the showcase. A nice early showing for him, and he is the newest member of the Redwater Undertakers. That is going to put the Glasgow Black Watch up on the clock. What are your thoughts on the pick of Optimus Klein there, Squibs?
Evan, I'm really happy that you took that one. My headphone died halfway through, so I was able to quickly get it back in. So,
Oh, perfect.
Evan, I think Klein is a fantastic pick for Redwater. I've heard that there are some connections to him prior, and so obviously I know Cornwall's not able to jump back on, but I would love to hear his breakdown of it, his thoughts on it. But with that, before we get any farther, Glasgow has made their 12th pick of the second round. Left winger Scott Fairway of, I believe, Manitoba. Evan, you want to talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, Scott Fairway, from the Moscow Snowhawks, now the Manitoba Snowhawks. That's a nice pick there for them. That's a playmaking left winger. Uh, going to be a great addition to Glasgow's offense here as we see the Reapers graphic. Dave did a great job on all these, so make sure to give him a great shout out there. But Fairway was the guy we were looking at a little bit. We had a staff meeting over here in Turku a couple of weeks ago, and we kind of narrowed down our list quite a bit from this deep draft class, and obviously kept keeping an eye on the newer guys that joined and whatnot. But Fairway was one of the guys that we talked about on our short list, and he's got a nice playmaker build, something we love to see. So a nice pick here for Glasgow as we've had a few picks come in. As we see why San Diego traded up, and that is to get goaltender Jan Lashik, sorry. I've said it right. I'll see. Oh, why is that not coming up? Yeah. Okay, he didn't
Well,
come up, so I'll have to manually type him in here.
you're good,
So
Evan.
Jan Lashik from Tokyo coming in for San Diego. What are your thoughts on the second goalie coming off the board here, leaving just Melbourne without one?
Well, Yan. Sorry, either way. I haven't been having to say it all season long like Evan has, so I'll use that as my excuse. Uh, Great person in the locker room, always active, always talking. If I'm not mistaken, I believe he lives somewhere in Europe, so a little bit of time advantage or time thing makes it a little harder for him to watch games all the time. But regardless, I know that when he was in Tokyo, when I would jump in and watch some of the minor streams, he always would either be watching it or the next day be talking about it in the locker room. So definitely a very high quality person, let alone his play being, I believe, the minors goaltender of the year. So, when we talked or when I spoke with him, just to get a little bit more information on him, he had said, he really hopes kind of become, like a real life Jan Lassick. And so, definitely somebody who had a lot of success on the international stage, and he hopes to replicate that as well as then replicate success that he had in the minors in the pros. So, definitely a high quality pick by San Diego. That's what we kind of figured their reason was for trading up, because they would have to wait with Melbourne having that pick there. So before them at the end of the second round. So definitely a solid pick there by San Diego. So with that, the 14th overall pick by Alaska has been made, which puts Las Vegas onto the clock. Alaska Arctic Wolves select center Shady Meeks out of Tokyo. Evan, you want to break that down for us?
Yeah, it's not a surprise seeing another Tokyo Tiger go. They've got a lot of hype around the Tigers as we see another one of Dave's awesome graphics here. A lot of hype around the Tokyo locker room and their whole roster, really. I think of all the teams in the minors, they were one of the ones that had the most players taken off of waivers this season. So, great pick there for Alaska, bringing in another Tiger. I just want to go back to Lashik for a second. I do like we have Josh Young obviously in Turku, and we're very fortunate to have him in our net now. And but if we didn't have him, like I was kind of thinking all off season, if something crazy happened, and for whatever reason we lost him and we needed a goaltender in, Jan Lashik was the guy. His activity level. He does live in Slovakia, obviously. I saw him in the chat. He's going absolutely nuts for a moment there. And I mean, the fact that he's watching it right now, it's like 2 a.m. or something for him over there. So that shows dedication to the league. So great pick there by San Diego. And then obviously on the Alaska front, Shady Meeks is a really nice prospect. Force to be reckoned with, very physical. Great player. And he can hold his own. He can drop you in a fight. He can and he'll hurt you on the scoreboard and in your face with his fist too. So a really nice pick there for Alaska. Really building out that roster quite nicely. While we have a couple minutes here, maybe we'll bring in Amelia Rose, owner of the Dublin Dragons. You took Patai with your first pick there, at 13 overall. What are your thoughts on him and bringing him into your locker room? I know he's a guy you've gotten along with well so far.
Yeah, I've been talking to him since he really joined the league. I helped him, get accustomed to the league. We started chatting, and we pretty much chatted all season, and made it known to him that he's definitely high on our draft board. He fits positional need, being a big power forward center, and I mean, he does a lot in other leagues too. He's very active, and he obviously he's joining the Warsaw Warlocks head coaching staff, and he'll be joining the Dublin Dragons staff in the media side to help us out there. And yeah, I mean he was the steal of the draft, as Trev would say.
Yeah, that's the thing that I think might be overlooked a little bit is that he's going to have that role coaching your minor league affiliates, which isn't always handed to somebody on the same team. So that's going to be a huge asset, kind of instilling that culture with those minor league players. We see it in Florence a little bit with Annie Leonhardt coaching the Tigers, but typically the minors coaches don't always have ties to the parent clubs, so that's going to be huge. Just seeing if a pick has come in yet. It hasn't yet. So what are your thoughts? I guess anyone keeping an eye on the transactions table has kind of noticed, or the transactions channel, sorry, has noticed Dublin's been pretty busy today picking up those early affiliate picks. What are your thoughts with that? Obviously, everybody's got to end with 4 affiliates, but overall, what are your thoughts on picking up the picks you did and what you think you're going to do with them?
Yeah, so I guess after all these three experts have been putting out their rankings and mocks, we'll see later when I make my picks, but I feel like the other targets that we have may slide down, so I thought it was a good opportunity to trade back 2 of my picks back around to pick up some of the better affiliates. I mean, we have the best draft class we probably will ever have, and having 4 first round affiliate picks will set us up for the future. And yeah, I mean, it'll be sweet to pick up some people that will hopefully join the pros next season or shortly after.
Yeah, that's going to be a huge asset for you guys. I do have a trade to announce. Uh, Squibs just had to step away for a sec. He'll be back in a moment, but we have a trade here. It does not include the on the clock pick. We are still waiting for that pick to come in. Clock's ticking down here on Vegas, but in the meantime, we do have a draft pick trade between the Jacksonville Vipers and the Norfolk Navigators, and that is pick number 18 of the second round is going to Jacksonville, and Norfolk is going to be receiving the yeah, so 12th pick of the third round. Jacksonville. That'll give Norfolk back-to-back picks there late in the third. And in order to do that move up, Norfolk is also going to receive a season 5 first and a season 5 second round pick in exchange for that trade up for Jacksonville. So they jumped to the end of the second round, up almost a full round by giving up a first and a second next season. So they'll be picking in a few picks. So we'll see their trade up in a moment. Um, yeah, always great to see that activity. And the pick is in from Las Vegas. This was a player a lot of people speculated would be heading to Turku because we did sign his father, but this is Aaron Beastman going to Las Vegas. Left winger, he's a grinder build. Yeah, when he first created his player as a grinder, you don't see those builds really be as dangerous right off the bat, and that does put Boston on the clock, by the way. But Beastman had a phenomenal season there for the Bucks, and that's going to be a great pick, a great physical presence for the Las Vegas Sinners next season. Definitely a player, like I mentioned, we narrowed down our short list a little while ago, and we had it down to about 4 or 5 players. The 3 that we drafted were obviously on it. And Beastman, right up until the pick, that's why we let our clock run down a little bit. We were debating some of the other guys that we took. So great pick for Vegas. He did try to trade up with me to get Beastman, and luckily for him, he fell to him. So That's a great pick. Going to be a physical asset, and his dad's one of the more active people in the league, so you got to think he's going to be sticking around as well. So, what are your thoughts on the Beastman pick there? As we let the War Unicorns on the clock graphic show there for a moment. What are your thoughts there, Squibs?
Well, Evan, I just want to say thank you. I had to take a quick moment away. No, definitely thought Beastman was going to go in the first round. I mean, one of the top grinders. I mean, one of the top, physical forwards as well. Definitely a solid pickup there by Doug in Las Vegas. Somebody who can hopefully play on their PK, get a lot of time on ice for him, and be, a very solid player for him. And fortunately, he'll be in, I believe, the other conference, so he won't be playing too much against his dad. But who knows? Maybe it's for the better for Turku and Aaron Kozak that they're not seeing Las Vegas and Aaron Beastman too often.
Yeah, and that was something we had a lot of conversation, or me specifically, but on behalf of our staff, had a lot of conversations with Kozak. As the signing was becoming apparent after he declared, and we started to have that conversation. And as the draft got closer, we had a lot of conversations there with Kozak about the possibility of bringing in his son. And I think he kind of mentioned that earlier in the season when he first joined, I think they were kind of hoping they'd end up together wherever Kozak did decide to sign at that point. And but as the season went on and Beastman got a little more comfortable in the minors and doing his own thing, he kind of liked the idea of playing against his dad. So he was good with either. We ultimately went a different direction, but Beastman was, a hair away from being one of our picks there. So a great pick for Vegas. He'll have to play against his dad a couple times this season, but not as regularly as Dublin or Florence, for example. With that, the Boston pick is on the clock, or has been made. Sorry. Did you want to announce that one there, Squibs?
Yeah, Boston with the 16th overall pick in the second round has taken right defenseman Jace Taylor from Saskatoon. A fantastic pick there by Eric. I know Taylor's very excited to go to Boston. When I was talking with him, he really wanted to go play for Eric. And after speaking with Eric had a lot of interest in him. So I'm glad that worked out for both of them. Taylor's a fantastic player. He was high on our board as well. So happy for both parties there that it worked out for him. Yeah, I think it's a very solid pick while we wait for Melbourne to see where they're heading.
Yeah, that throws the Marauders back up on the clock. They've been having a solid draft so far. Brought in a couple forwards earlier this round. And it's interesting to note, Jace Taylor is only the second defenseman taken off the board here in the second round. There were 7 in round 1. Just Jace Taylor and now and Donnybrook before him. As far as the blue line is concerned, here in round number 2. I will also mention with that trade I announced a few moments ago between Norfolk and Jacksonville, with that pick coming up in a pick or two, that now brings us to 2 on the air trades. So if you filled out that draft props poll I sent out earlier, the over under was set at 2.5. So we're sitting right there. If another trade comes through, it'll hit the over. If we stand put from here, we will hit the under. What are your thoughts? I don't know if you were around when that trade happened there, Squibs, but what are your thoughts on Jacksonville trading up from 312 to 218 and giving up a first and a second next season?
Banks has been very active. And you said he traded up for it, correct?
Yeah, he
Yes,
traded
I
up
see that
almost
now.
around, yeah.
I was going to say I came back right as you were kind of finished announcing that. So, Jacksonville, was very much expressing interest to move up. So to jump from the third round to the end of the second round is very, I think, just a solid move, especially since their first and second, as they hope, will be near the end of the rounds the next few years. So they've built a very solid team. They were, very competitive throughout the season. So, just building on that and trading up, giving up those assets to hopefully land, a guy who's going to continue that build and hope them, progress further into the playoffs. Hopefully, be a solid thing for them. And Norfolk at the same time is adding, a bit more talent, being in their same division. So, might be a look by Norfolk to just kind of prepare for next offseason and really make that push for the following season. Hopefully if Florida or Jacksonville take a step back.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see who they pick, but Jacksonville was a threatening team to play against this season, and I think they'll be looking to do the same next season with a nice rookie class here. Obviously, they brought in another scoring threat in Field, and we'll see what they do here at 218 in a moment. But in the meantime, we do have the Melbourne Marauders pick that has been made. That is center Matthew Norris from the Indianapolis Ice. And that puts Jacksonville on the clock with that traded pick that we were talking about. Norris is a player that, he's been pretty active. I had a lot of conversations with him early in the process. Haven't really talked to him lately as far as DMs go. But what are your thoughts there on the Norris pick? A real talented center there coming out of Indianapolis.
Yeah, being able to land a playmaker at this part of the draft is always a solid move. Last season we took playmaker first and third overall with Bo Diddle and Michael Briston. We were very high on both of them. Fantastic talks with both of them. But being able to, bring in somebody who, will be able to play center, be able to, whether it's first line, second line, third line, even fourth line possibly. I'm not entirely sure how Melbourne's forward room looks at the moment, but being able to bring in somebody who's just going to be able to contribute right away, set up those key passes and bring in, hopefully some success for that forward group, I think will be huge for an expansion team. I definitely benefited from that with Bo Diddle and Michael Briston. So that, that pick there is a solid move. So, with that though, Adam Banks and the Jacksonville Vipers have made their selection with the 18th pick in the second round. They're taking right defenseman Mighty Duck from the Atlantic Bucks. With that will now move to the third round with the first overall pick there, putting the Florence Firebirds and myself onto the clock. So, Evan, take it away, and I will be with you shortly.
Yeah, I'll let you go do your thing. This is where we had a little bit of technical issues last season anyway, so let's see if it works. I hit the first round, and we are on to round 3 now as Florence is on the clock. As I put the wrong defenseman in the draft board there. Sorry about that. That is Mighty Duck was selected by the Jacksonville Vipers. It looks good on the screen. Perfect. So no technical issues this time. We'll see in a couple rounds, but Mighty Duck, he's a two-way defenseman, if I'm not mistaken. Came in partway through the season, and he's been really playing well for the Atlantic Bucks. He did win a championship with them there, our second minor league championship here, as we didn't have one in season 1. But a great run for him in the playoffs really helped, and I think he played really well in the showcase as well. So, I think that's going to be a great pick for Jacksonville to add to their blue line. Phenomenal pick. Maybe no Jacksonville players or owners are around right now, but Mighty Duck, he's a scoring threat from the blue line, but he's also really responsible on the back end. That kind of goes with that two-way build. And with that, the Florence Firebirds have made the pick. I'll announce that pick, and then we'll have Squibs talk about it. And that is from the Tokyo Tigers / Florence affiliate last season. So they get him back in the draft. It is Dime Hardaway, left defenseman from the Tokyo Tigers. Squibs, obviously, you traded for him after we actually drafted him as an affiliate last season. And he spent the whole season as an affiliate of yours with Tokyo last season. So what are your thoughts on bringing Dime back in the draft and how he was as an affiliate in your locker room?
We loved Dime last year. As a staff, we would have loved to have signed him, but unfortunately, with just everything up in the air with expansion draft this past season, made it hard for us to kind of have that conversation with him. And we wanted to let him have the choice to opt back into the draft and possibly find a new home. And so he was able to do that. opting into the draft part, finding a new home. He just now moves to the pro squad with us. So, we're super excited to be able to bring him back in and make him, a part of our professional ice team defense. So, being able to play likely on our second line at the moment. We came into this draft looking for defensive D-men or enforcers, and being able to bring Dime back in, we knew we were ecstatic for it. And so, as the draft kept happening, we traded back there from 2.13. We were excited that Dime was still there and we were able to take him. But without further ado, Melbourne has made their pick with the second pick in the third round. They take right winger Rock Steele from the Atlantic Box. With that now puts on Alaska for the third pick in the third round. While Alaska gets their pick ready, Evan, can you talk about the Rock Steele pick?
Yeah, for sure. That Bucks team, obviously they won the minor league championship, but for those that didn't follow that closely, they actually came in as the lowest seed at number 6. All teams in the minors made the playoffs last season, and they came in from number 6 and went on a nice run to win the title. And Rock Steele was a big part of that. And he, the Bucks offense was very balanced. I don't think they really had one. Like obviously they had some scorers. There's Panarin, Cake, Steele, guys like that. Finn was a big force for them physically and offensively as well. But they didn't really have like that one line that they always relied on. If one line wasn't producing, they had a pretty dynamic group. Patai playing center, filling kind of all the roles that he needed to on the power play, penalty kill, whatever he was asked of. So that team was very balanced, and I think that Rock Steele really flourished in a situation like that, where he wasn't asked to be the number one guy, but he was certainly capable of doing it if he needed to. Like you never know, any given day, you never know who you need to step up and produce. And I think Rock Steele showed that he's able to be that guy if he needs to be for his team, but he's also comfortable, playing a secondary scoring role if he needs to. So, and obviously making that jump to the pros, you're not going to be asked to be the guy right away, probably in a lot of situations. But playing for Melbourne, he's going to get a lot of opportunities for some higher up ice time as they enter the draft. Only 4 forwards on their roster, so he's got a real shot at some top 6 minutes, and I think that he's going to be a nice force in that Pacific Division. What are your thoughts on Melbourne with that pick? Obviously, they're in a different division, but same conference as us.
I talked with Rock Steele a little bit earlier in the draft, or in the draft process, getting everything scouting and whatnot. When I was talking with him, he had expressed that he really wants to be a team player, a guy that's going to get in and kind of play hard, win as much 50-50 pucks as they can, and do their best just to get behind the D-men and get pucks on net. After speaking with him for a little bit, he played hockey for years and almost made it back to the juniors in the 90s. So as a person himself, he has a lot of history with hockey, and I think that's going to be a great mind that they're going to be able to bring in there for Melbourne, as well as a great locker room fit. So I think it's a solid pick for them. And with that, I believe Alaska has made their third pick. If you want to go ahead and announce that, while we're waiting, we'll get Tennessee onto the clock.
Yeah, for sure. And I commentated a fair number of minors games this season, and of course, you throw back to me one of the ones that I had a little bit of trouble mispronouncing this season. That is Jarian Patrick, or it might be Patrick, or Patrich or something. But either way, right defenseman from Indianapolis, Jarian Patrick. He's he was involved with the Indianapolis staff. Obviously, Joey Rab did a lot there for them, but he was involved with that team and kind of helped lead them with Rab to a number 1 seed. And he has that interest in being involved in staff at the next level. So I'm not sure if Alaska's looking for that, but he was a guy kind of on the radar as far as somebody who could possibly step into a front office position when he was drafted. And he's a great 2-way defenseman, and getting him here in the third round, it's a nice pick. He's got a high overall. He's a real nice addition there for the Arctic Wolves, and kind of brings me back a little bit to last season when we saw them get Cam Creed in the third round, and every other team in the league was a little bit nervous about that selection when you see a defenseman of that caliber start to slide a little bit. and then somebody like Alaska scoops them up that late. So, phenomenal pick, I think, by Alaska. As we see the Tennessee Black Bears graphic putting them on the clock. Yeah, great pick there by Alaska. What are your thoughts on the Patriot pick?
Yeah, I mean, he was high on our board. Unfortunately, didn't get to have too much of a conversation with him. But we definitely thought, he was a solid guy. There with Indianapolis last season. I mean, he's decent overall, especially as a two-way defenseman. Those somehow always, have a bit of room, whether they're, starting a little bit lower overall or, able to start a little higher overall. So, working with the builds and, learning, what might be the best height and weight to go with and whatnot, can definitely play a part in a player's build. And, this, like you said, might be, a pick similar to Cam Creed last year where the guy kind of just slid down a little bit and definitely got drafted farther down than he should have, but hopefully will make an impact for Alaska there.
Yeah, and Alaska's starting to kind of remind me a little bit of the Baltimore Ravens in the NFL. And, I'm a big Steelers fan. I can't stand the Ravens, but for some reason, every draft they seem to have great players just fall into their laps. And Patrick is one of those kind of players. He's, at times he wasn't the most active in chats. That might have contributed to this fall a little bit, but he's a real talented build. And I think Alaska landing him and landing Creed last season. I think that's and Shady Meeks. I mean, in the late second, that's another real talented player they got. So it's kind of that Ravens effect, where they seem to have great players land in their laps every draft. So Alaska is going to be dangerous yet again. They obviously returned most of their top players, except the odd one like Kozak did leave, but for the most part, that team's intact, and they're going to be a force to be reckoned with this season over in the Pacific Division. So it looks like Kamenev says as a Ravens fan he doesn't like me either. So, yeah, fair enough, but that's okay. While we await the Tennessee selection, it looks like we might have Nathaniel Ironsides available. Not sure if he's around, but Ironsides, if you're there, do you want to maybe talk about the feeling of being selected? I think it was number 15 overall to the Florida Challengers, and what you're kind of hoping for in your pro career.
Yeah, absolutely. I wasn't sure what I was expecting, but I'm glad to be in Florida where there is no state tax, and I want to be a playmaker. I want to be a difference maker for Florida. And correct me if I'm wrong, but they were just that close to being Gretzky Cup champions, and I believe I could be the missing piece to take them to the moon.
Yeah, they were absolutely the runner up in that championship playoff run there. They had a nice run through the playoffs. They swept, unfortunately, I have to say it, but they swept us in round one. They had a sweep in round two as well against Vegas, I believe. And then they did kind of meet their match against Dublin. So, yeah, hopefully, you can be a nice piece to kind of help boost their hopes of a championship down the line.
Yeah, well, let's make some plays. Let's make some magic happen. I'm here to have fun.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks for taking the time to hop on here, and congratulations on being picked.
Go Challengers.
Yeah. Go Challengers, he says. Luckily for us, Ironsides is going to be playing in the opposite conference, but, that's a great pick for Florida here. Tennessee, with, excuse me, 50 seconds up on the clock, Squibs, do you want to maybe talk about what you think this pick's going to hold?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that last part. Cut out just for a moment.
Yeah, no worries. I was just saying, do you want to maybe talk about, actually, you know what? Their pick is in. Do you want to announce the Tennessee selection?
Yeah, so with the fourth overall selection in the third round, Tennessee Black Bears has selected center Luca Murray from Saskatoon. I'm not sure if Dave is available to jump on and talk about it, but while we wait for that, we can get Boston onto the clock, and actually, we're going to kick it to CGQ to talk about Bunka.
All right, so long story short, I'm actually good friends with Bunka Murray in real life. But looking at his build, I just really like it. I like what you were saying earlier about a we need power forwards and we need grinders on our teams. My team has not many since we're still building ourselves up, but having a solid midline center on our team with a grinder and Bunker Murray is looking forward to it. Down to get dirty with the play style.
Awesome. Yeah, for sure. Down to get dirty. Absolutely. He's going to be a nice physical presence for you guys. We do have a few more picks coming in here. I'll go ahead and announce the the Boston pick. Picks are coming in faster than we can keep up with. Yeah, so we are going to throw Dublin on the clock. Boston has made the selection of Don Fletcher, left winger out of the Atlantic Bucks. If that name sounds familiar to any season 1 vets, that is because a player by the same name played for us in Calgary during season 1 before they left the league and has come back. It is the same person, created a slightly different player with the same name. So, somebody who's been around the league a little bit, has that activity level, and yeah, it's going to be a nice pick there, a nice sniper selection there for Boston. What do you think about that pick there, Swift?
Gosh, I love Don. Being his teammate there in season 1, he was a great goal scorer. Very interested in the league early on, and unfortunately, not sure why he stepped away and came back, but I'm happy that he's back now. So, I think I believe Boston. Got a very solid player. Guy who understands the league very well, and back in season 1, really kind of lit it up, and hopefully, he can bring that back now. So, but before we get too much farther, we have both of Dublin Dragons picks, the 6th overall and 7th overall picks. With the 6th overall selection, the Dublin Dragons take Rice Cake, a right winger out of the Atlantic Bucks. And with the 7th pick, they take Vati Amarov. I really hope I said that right, but I doubt I did. A center from Saskatoon. With that, we'll put Melbourne on for the 8th overall pick. Not sure if Rose is available to jump on and talk about those picks, but if he is available, Rose, you want to jump on. Otherwise, Evan, you want to take the reins on that.
Yeah.
It looks like.
Unless you want to go.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say, it looks like you unmuted, and yeah, let's get your thoughts.
Yeah, so we'll start with Rice Cake. He's actually old teammates with Potty and one of our players, the Bob, who all played together on the Atlantic Bucks. Rice Cake, he's the sniper that we're looking for to help fill out our depth. Unfortunately, we lost a few due to free agency and other ownership, so we feel he'll fit great with us. He's also a good friend of Potty's, so them being line mates and good friends, hopefully the chemistry transfers over. And in terms of Amirov, again, another power forward that we've been waiting for in the league for a few seasons now. Nice 6'5", on the lighter side at 190, but we think he'll still fit nicely with us and again help us round out our depth. And actually another friend of our co-owner, Fulton Reed.
And that's kind of a theme we're starting to see a little bit. There's a pick, I think CGQ a couple picks ago mentioned he knows Bunker Murray in real life, and that's kind of the way the sim leagues go sometimes. And build is important and quality players are important, but you want to play with people and that you can trust to get your progressions in. So yeah, good that another one of those friendships kind of came to fruition. We are starting to fall a little bit behind on the picks here, so I'm going to go ahead and announce the Melbourne Marauders selection. They took Not Satisfied, the center out of Tokyo. It's another big body. Yeah, another interesting name. We've got a few of those in this league. Not Satisfied is being picked by Melbourne. A force to be reckoned with here over in Tokyo last season. Looks like we've got Mikey Adams maybe on the call. Did you want to maybe comment on that pick of Satisfied while we throw Boston up on the clock?
Yeah, sure. So we're at the point now where we're starting to look at some of our more depth options, and with us going defense strong, as we discussed earlier, this is a player that I think can come in a depth role to start, knock some guys around, protect that net for the rookie goaltender, who obviously with only one Bane left on the board is going to be sliding a little bit. But I see a lot of good talent in him. He's active for a guy drafted this late. I use the draft or the Twitch rankings a lot to kind of gauge activity before I was able to actually see in some of these chat rooms for the minors, and he's way up there considering his tenure with us. And honestly, I got to give a shout out to the artist formerly known as Alistair Lee on this one as well. Shaboy Sean has pounded the table for him for a couple rounds now as a potential ad, and I think he joined some of his former teammates in Melbourne, and should be a big step up for us.
Yeah, for sure. Building out that team, you've got players from all over the minors, but a few Tokyo Tigers there to kind of join the formerly known Alistair Lee over there in Tokyo. Squibs Satisfied was a player on Tokyo who had a couple of your affiliate players. Did you get much of a look at Satisfied, and what are your thoughts on kind of that selection?
And Not Satisfied was one of my favorite players on Tokyo. When we called up Guy Clausen part of the way through the season, Not Satisfied was a guy we were talking to. We had reached out to him. Fortunately, he had some Discord trouble, so we weren't able to bring him in at that time. But we loved his build. We loved his play style. I mean, a playmaking center who was just a big physical player. Definitely would have been a guy that you bring in, you put him on your PK, likely your PK1, and he's just going to tear it up there on that aspect. You put him out there on maybe your checking line, and he's really just going to kind of provide that defensive unit or defensive pressure from the forward position that a lot of teams need. So if we had a forward spot open, Not Satisfied was very high on our list. And like I said, loved his build, loved his play style, loved his activity as well. So overall, great player, great pick by Melbourne. And with that, the 9th overall pick has come in from Boston. Ben Stack and Paper, center from Vancouver. With that, that'll put Albuquerque on the clock for the 10th pick. Evan, break Stack and Paper down for us.
Yeah, obviously, as a minors commissioner and streamer, like I mentioned earlier, there's only one night of minors games during the regular season that I was not able to stream. But aside from that, sometimes when you're streaming, you got other things going on. You're looking elsewhere. But I feel like when I was doing stuff around the house, and anytime I look back at the screen, it was Stack and Paper scoring a goal. Like he was always right in the dirty area, right in front of the nets, banging home rebounds. I don't know how many goals he ended the season with, and obviously with minor stats not being tracked as closely towards the end of the season, it's a little hard to know that number. But it kind of did feel like he was, always right in front of the net, kind of putting home those rebounds and putting in a lot of goals. So a nice addition there, playing out of the Sydney Whales, now going to be the Vancouver Whales. So yeah, I love the Stack and Paper pick. A little surprised he fell this late. But in a deep draft class, like we said, anything can happen here. We are going to move forward here as we finally have caught up with the picks that have been made. It is the Albuquerque Pharaohs have selected a right winger out of Saskatoon, Daryl Bullock. So yeah, another big forward there. Nice addition for Albuquerque. What are your thoughts on the Bullock selection there, Squibs?
I think it's a fantastic selection. I don't know too much about him, but just based on art type and overall, he seems, to be a very solid player. And, as Cam mentioned earlier, he lost Bailey Harper in a trade earlier this offseason. So I really think, that's kind of, a direct replacement for Harper. And, I really think Bullock will do really well in Albuquerque, and Kamenev's building a very solid squad out there. So, with that, not sure if you kicked it over to Redwater already. So while we await their pick, maybe we can get Cam in here to talk about it a little bit more. Cam, you there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
All right, break your pick down for us.
We got a couple guys we're looking at. we don't pick again until Mr. Irrelevant at 75th. So for us, we're looking at who can make an immediate impact for us. And there was a couple guys that stood out, but we wanted to even things out in regards to snipers and playmakers. And bringing in Daryl at this late in the draft, I think, is just an absolute steal. Especially as a playmaker who can play on the wing. You don't see a lot of those. So, it really just kind of fit what we were looking for. And I think we're really excited about what he can do for us moving forward.
Well, thank you for jumping on. We look forward to seeing whoever Mr. Irrelevant is in your mind, and who that might be at the end of this draft. So, but any thoughts of what Redwater might end up doing here?
Yeah, there's obviously it's a very deep draft. There's a lot of guys still on the board. I haven't tracked their needs too closely here. I'm not sure exactly what their needs are, but so far with their early picks, it does seem like they've kind of gone with guys that they have connections with. Firing up their roster here. Looks like they do have just one open spot left, and I think it's on their blue line, if I'm not mistaken. So lots of great defensive talent is still on the board. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see who Redwater picks here, as they are still on the clock for another 2.5 minutes. Yeah, there's lots of great defensive players on the board, and I wonder what way they're going to go. Do you have any thoughts?
Well, they traded Dar away this offseason, so definitely could see them grabbing, maybe a guy like David Cole, one of the better remaining offensive D-men in this class. If they didn't want to go that way, maybe like a two-way D guy, somebody that can help with offense, somebody can help with defense. And as I'm saying that, looks like their pick has come in. So with that, Redwater, with the 11th overall pick in the third round, has selected right defenseman Gordo Bombay from Saskatoon. With that, that'll put Norfolk on the clock for 2 picks. Evan, can you talk about Bombay for us?
Yeah, Bombay came in kind of early weeks. I want to say around week 2 or 3, maybe even earlier than that. And went through a name change. So if you've been around all season and not paying close attention to the minors, it was a different name. I think it was Diddy Clapper or something along those lines. Because another player came in with Dick Clapper Jr. or something like that, similar name. So they ended up changing to Gordo Bombay. It is a two-way defenseman, like you referenced. They might be looking at. So props to you for making that call. And yeah, Bombay, like I said, been around for most of the season. I think really talented defenseman. Somebody that if we were looking at adding a blue liner, I think he would have been up there as far as two-way defenseman. If we missed out on Kozak or somebody like that, we might have been looking to add him. Yeah, a great pick, I think, from Redwater. And Saskatoon had a good season under some good leadership, and it's going to be exciting to see Bombay playing next season down in Texas, as we see Norfolk on the clock for a couple of picks. I think I saw Twin Screw typing for a sec, and there it is. Left defenseman, another Saskatoon defenseman. It is Joe Botchajuice with the first of their 2 picks. And we see them still on the clock now for the 13th pick of the second round. Botchajuice is a big physical defenseman, really talented player there for Saskatoon. What are your thoughts on that pick there, Squibs, as we await Norfolk's second selection in a row?
Botcher Juice, Joe was somebody that we had talked to a little bit. Very good conversation. Very high on our board for our next coming pick. We only have one D spot left, so we're sitting over here as a staff working through who we're looking at. Joe was high on our board. Very happy that he was able to go to Norfolk, being able to play in front of one of the better goaltenders in the league. So I think it'll be a solid fit for him. And with that, the Norfolk has submitted their next pick, which will put myself, Florence Firebirds, back on the clock, I believe, for the 14th pick. Norfolk has selected Kentrail Galden, left winger from the Atlantic Bucks. So, Evan, I'll kick it to you to talk about that while my squad and I talk about who we're going to go with next.
Yeah, for sure. And, taking a step back, a couple picks here to Gordo Bombay. Doug has just reminded me that Gordo was actually in the league originally in season 1 as well, played for Vegas as Gunnar Stahl. So somebody who's, again, similar to Don Fletcher, Fowler, people like that who have been in the league since season 1, maybe left for a little bit and came back. So yeah, another great pick there for Redwater, getting somebody who knows the ins and outs here. But Golden, like I mentioned earlier about the Bucks, he, that Bucks offense was very very balanced all the way through. No matter what happened with their lines, whether they rotated them or whatnot, they had guys that were able to step up and produce no matter what the ice time they were getting was. So Golden was another one of those wingers that even though the lines rotated a bit, didn't always play tons in every game, came through when needed and was really a dynamic force for the Atlanta Bucks. So that's a nice pick there for Twins Crew and the Norfolk Navigators. Rose, I don't know if you're still around, but obviously Dublin was affiliated with the Bucks. They were actually designed by your co-owner Fulton Reed there, and even though you're changing affiliates this season, not sure if you watched the Bucks a whole lot, but what do you think about their offense and that golden pick?
Yeah, I mean, the Bucks obviously had they had a tougher regular season coming in sixth, but had a great postseason finishing and winning the cup. And you can pretty much look at their offense because of it. Their defense stood strong. Puck stopper did what he needed to do and stop pucks, but you can't win without scoring goals, and that's what the Atlantic Bucks did, and that's why three of our new rookies this season are Bucks players, coming off the championship and hopefully bringing that momentum over to have the Dragons go back to back.
Yeah, obviously, the Dragons won the Pro Championship. Their affiliate, the Bucks, won the minor league championship. So, bringing those players in is going to be a huge asset. And we kind of talked about it earlier. When Squibbs asked me about the impact that minors coaches have. But maybe what is a little overlooked at times is the amount of attention spent towards a minor's locker room by the team owner or team staff, from their parent clubs, their affiliated clubs, and like you said, or like Rose just said, 2 or 3 of the Atlantic Bucks players are now going to be Dublin Dragons next season, and yeah, when you are affiliated with a team and you have a couple players of your own playing on that team, you can kind of watch it a little bit closer, I think, and that's going to be a huge asset to teams maybe moving forward as they focus on more teams and we start to see drafts kind of trend that way. I know Fox. I think you're still around for a little bit longer. Did you want to maybe talk? I know you're coming up in a few picks, so I don't know if you're busy, but did you maybe want to talk about how the draft has gone so far for Cleveland and where you think you guys are going with your next couple picks? Obviously, you can't go into detail, but how are things going for you guys over in Cleveland so far?
They're going pretty good. We got the top 3 players that we wanted. We kind of know what we're doing towards the end of the draft, but middle is kind of where Eric and I have been putting our heads together and figuring out what we wanted to do, and I think we came away with a pretty good strategy. So just waiting for our pick now.
Awesome, yeah, and that's kind of the toughest part about being in these drafts. Sometimes is it's a live draft. Picks are coming in fast and heavy, and sometimes it seems kind of hectic, but at the same time, you can go long stretches without having a pick and kind of sitting here for, I don't know the time that you guys submitted your last pick, but having no picks in the third round and your last one being early second, I would guess it has to have been, over an hour, or maybe not that long yet, but
It's about there. Yeah,
yeah,
it's about an hour away, and I thought literally we'd be submitting that pick around 9, which is when I was supposed to jump off and go to bed, but they're coming in so fast that I stayed up and I'm gonna say got with Eric, and we think we know what we want to do.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, and like sometimes these picks can kind of fly through, and sometimes they can take a little bit longer. And yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what Florence does here with this pick, as they are on the clock still, with just about no time left. And there it
Just
is.
announced.
Oh man, this is one of the newer players in the league. Oh, and the San Diego pick comes in right away. So we'll throw San Diego on the clock in a moment here. But Victor Hellstrom, right defenseman, selected by Florence. Their team is listed as noob. I guess one of the newer players in the league. Victor Hellstrom, nice pick by Florence. He was somebody I was kind of, that's a great pick. He's super active. Personally, I was hoping he'd slide to the affiliate rounds, and I'd be able to take him later this week and bring him into the Turku locker room as affiliate defenseman. So nice pick there, Squibs, as San Diego's on the clock. Squibs, maybe you want to talk about that pick and take the reins while I have to step away for a moment.
Yeah, thanks, Evan. Hellstrom was a guy that our staff reached out to and talked to earlier today. He expressed interest. He sounded, like somebody who was going to be very active, very focused, and really would enjoy the league. And that's something that we, we're discussing for a while. Do we bring in somebody that we haven't had as great of a conversation with, who might have a better build or a better play style, or somebody who we've spoken to and our staff trusts and really like, even though he's newer to the league and a bit lower of an overall right now. So we really thought about it, and that's why we took up a lot of the clock talking about it, thinking it over. So we're very happy with Hellstrom. We would have been happy, either way we went, but we definitely trust Hellstrom. And I trust my staff that they, are leading us into the right direction with this, and I really look forward to the defensive unit as well as the locker room that we can have next year. So, we talked about, would we be able to grab him in affiliation, but unfortunately, we valued just who he was as a player or as a person more so to really kind of take that risk now to bring him on in and have him here. So, without further ado, San Diego has submitted their pick, which now puts Boston on for the 16th pick in the third round, the final pick, I believe, of this round. With the 15th pick, though, the San Diego Reapers select right defenseman Brent Hoffenmeyer from Manitoba, I believe. So, let's see, I don't have anybody on here from San Diego, so I'll go ahead and talk about Brent for a little bit. He was somebody that we liked. Definitely, a very solid build. But as I talked about, we had a very good conversation with Hellstrom. Not saying we didn't have a good conversation with Hoffenmeyer, but we had just a better conversation there with Hellstrom from our standpoint. But regardless, Hoffenmeyer or Mayer, very solid player, very solid build, it looks like. So San Diego, once again, is building a very solid defensive unit after bringing in Rosca earlier in this draft. So very solid move by Matt Green and Julian Alejandro there in San Diego. So carrying on, though, we now have the 16th pick in the third round from Boston, which now will put Cleveland on for the fourth pick in the first pick in the fourth round. Boston has selected center Robert Ivory from the Atlantic Bucks. Again, don't have anybody on here, so maybe if Rose can jump on, talk a little bit about Ivory, I would appreciate it. But if not, we can, just break down, a little bit about him. So Rose, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, this was interesting. I thought he would go a lot sooner. The draft class didn't, from when I looked, it didn't have too many big playmakers, and especially ones that have started in the preseason. And being on the Atlantic Bucks, he was a large contributor for them. So I think Boston has a great pick here that will help their forward group out. We saw that they focused in the expansion draft and early in the draft on their goalies and defense. So having a playmaker that's been in the league for the past season, and I mean, speed's great, passing's great. I think he'll fit in well there.
Awesome. Well, thank you for jumping on. While you jumped on, Cleveland has made their pick, so we'll put Melbourne on the clock for the second pick in the fourth round. With that first pick, though, Cleveland has selected left wing Doink, who I believe from Manitoba. Evan, if you're backing on, if you want to jump on and talk about it a little bit, feel free to. But otherwise, Doink was a player who had a very solid archetype and very solid build as a player, and looked like a very solid player in general. So, Evan, you want to talk a little bit more in depth? Go ahead. Not yet, it sounds like. So, all right, we'll continue on.
Sorry, I'm here. I'm good. Sorry about
All
that. I
right.
was muted. Still. A little bit of technical forgetfulness there. Yeah, Doink, that last name was a bit tough to kind of grasp while I was pronouncing, or while I was commentating, I guess. I think I kind of just said it as fast as possible because I knew I'd mispronounce it anyway. But yeah, Doink on a honey who had his season there in the Snowhawks locker room, and yeah, he was a great player on Moscow there, force to be reckoned with. I think he's going to be a great addition to Cleveland. Joining an expansion team, there's an opportunity, obviously, for some additional ice time. So I think that that's going to be a great pick for the Cleveland Hounds. Maybe we'll have somebody come on to talk about that in a moment. But we'll announce the Melbourne pick, and that is left winger from the Moscow Snowhawks, Robert Cherry of the going to the Melbourne Marauders. Squibs, what are your thoughts on the pick of Cherry as we see San Diego back on the clock?
I think solid player. Melbourne continuing to add forwards to their group. So overall, just very solid draft so far, it seems like, from them. Looking at Robert Cherry, I mean, he's a grinder, 6'2", 230 pounds, 57 overall. So, I mean, as a player, he's got that kind of size and physicality that you want out of a physical forward. So Melbourne with a very solid selection with Robert Cherry there. I definitely think at this point in the draft, there's so much talent, kind of throughout that, it's definitely going to be hard to go wrong with a pick. At the same time, getting those guys that will be good for your squad as well as be great for the locker room, I think are key in this section of the draft. So, and with that, San Diego has just made their pick in the 4th round. So, talking about guys who are going to be solid locker room pieces, as well as great players, San Diego has selected a left defenseman, Marasov, from the Atlantic Bucks, which now that puts Tennessee onto the clock. Evan, you want to talk about Marasov a little bit? Evan, you are muted if you were trying to talk.
Yeah, it's been a rough go for me the last few minutes. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, Marasov as an offensive defenseman, not really sure how early she'd be taken. Sometimes they're kind of sliding down the board a little bit as there's not as many offensive players needed on the blue line. But I think that's a great pick. Somebody who's active in the room, positive, going to do whatever the team needs to improve. Yeah, I mean, played for that Bucks team that obviously won the championship. I think he was named as one of the sleepers or something by that new Gohls Sports Network or whatever that new Twitter account is. Had a collaboration there with one of the experts, I think, named as one of the sleeper picks or something like that by them. So a nice addition here for San Diego. Obviously had Bane Cadis as another offensive blue liner. So now with two potential offensive threats from the back end, it'll be interesting to see what San Diego does with them and whether they get a fair amount of power play time on this new expansion team. What are your I'm trying to see. Yeah, Matt's still not around. So what are your thoughts on the Marasov pick, and then I guess where you think Tennessee might be heading with this pick?
I mean, with Marasov, it was definitely, one of those guys that, overall wise, not somebody who might be on a lot of people's radars. But ultimately, as, I had mentioned, he is somebody who is active, really kind of interested and invested into the league. So, I think overall, it was a very solid pick by them. There's a couple other offensive demon that are still on the board that will be really good guys. A guy like David Cole still out there as one of the better offensive D-men based on overall. He was there here last season as an affiliate player with Jacksonville, so I can definitely see him coming up here soon. And with that, actually, I believe that Tennessee, who would need two defensemen. They have an OFD already, two defensive D-men, and an enforcer. I really think they could go with in a multitude of directions here. But ultimately, a guy like David Cole at this point in the draft, with his commitment to the league from last year and still being around, I think is a guy that they could really grab and put my words right into my mouth as they took David Cole with the 4th overall pick in the 4th round. So Tennessee with that pick, or as I was talking about him. So CGQ, if you are available to jump on and talk about it, go ahead and feel free as we get the Boston War Unicorns on the clock for their pick.
So, thought it was kind of funny. I was in the middle of putting our pick in of David Cole as you were just talking about him. That's some good timing right there. It's like you read my mind. But I really liked the offensive defenseman build. I think it's a great build. And just looking at him overall and looking at his dedication to the league, I think he's going to fit in our locker room really well. Like what we mentioned earlier in this draft is that we're looking for an active locker room. And I think, sticking down in the minors for an extra year just to get a little bit more under his belt was a good call. And I think it's going to turn out really well. I'm excited to add him to our defensive room.
Yeah, and anytime you see somebody who, doesn't get picked until the affiliate rounds last season and sticks with it for a whole season in the minors, especially given how our minors program was run beforehand. Season 3, we took a lot of steps forward with our minor program, but it wasn't, what it was before. So seeing somebody, I guess, kind of stick with it coming into the season and kind of go a whole season in the minors, how much did that level of commitment, I guess, weigh into this David Cole pick here?
It was a really big draw to him, honestly. It just shows, he's committed to this league, he's committed to his team. It was a huge, factor in this decision.
Yeah, for sure. I'd imagine it would have to be. And obviously, playing for Indianapolis, he was a affiliate of Tennessee as well. And with that, we are going to move on to the Boston War Unicorn selection here from the Moscow Snowhawks. They have selected right winger Glizzy Gladiator. There it is. Glizzy Gladiator going to the Boston War Unicorns. Quite the name and the fit there. So Glizzy joining Boston. What are your thoughts on that selection there, Squibs, as we see Norfolk Navigators coming on the clock?
I mean, with a name like that, you gotta take it. Take that chance, take that risk. As a sniper build, yeah. I mean, he joined in week 5, so he's been here for a little bit. I mean, as a 56 overall sniper, as a guy, hopefully, can play, maybe a little bit lower down the lines there in Boston for a little bit, and then, as he grows and as he progresses, work his way up, whether that's in Boston or wherever he ends up taking his career to. For during his time in Gohls. But I think a guy like Gladiator is a hard name not to pass, or hard name to pass on, just because you can sell a lot of merch. And I know Eric Newton is huge on selling merchandise after his time at Dublin this past year. So a fantastic pick by them. Actually, while we were talking, Norfolk has submitted their pick in the 4th round. So as we ready to announce that, we will now shift towards we got next on the clock, Evan.
Las Vegas Sinners are next up.
Thank you. But with that, the 8th pick in the 4th round is center Benjamin Warner from the Iceland/Indianapolis Ice. You want to break down that Warner pick there?
Yeah, Warner's a player that I feel like there was a big boom of players that kind of joined partway through the season there. And, he kind of came in as part of that. I think there was a particular week where the Ice kind of added, 4 or 5 players, and he was one of those. And he's been a big physical presence, playing center down the stretch here. He's I think he might have played on the wing a little bit, maybe some special teams or something like that. But he's a center for Indianapolis, and he was a tough guy to play against. I don't think a lot of people looked forward to playing against him, especially with some of the snipers that he got to play with there. Obviously, guys like Liam Cody and stuff like that, kind of taking a lot of attention defensively from the other side. And Warner was really tough to play against. While we wait for Doug and the Vegas Sinners to make their pick, just going to touch on. We've mentioned a few times the Indianapolis slash Iceland Ice, the Sydney slash Vancouver Whales, stuff like that. Some teams did change locations for a number of reasons. The number one reason for location changes was we have a rule until we get to 16 minor league teams, when every team would have their own affiliate. Up until that point, we're going to make sure that no minor league team shares a country with a pro team. We did have one exception to that this season with Indianapolis Ice, but we moved them out to enforce that rule. That's why they're moving to Iceland. That's why Sydney moved to Vancouver with the new Melbourne Marauders joining the Pro League in Australia. And then obviously Moscow moved to Manitoba for obvious reasons. Yeah, so that's why if you haven't been paying close attention to the minor league teams and their names and stuff, that might be why you might not recognize some of these, or why we kind of have two locations associated with some of these teams here. And with that, the Vegas Sinners still on the clock for another 3 minutes or so, or until they make their pick. Do you have any thoughts as to where Las Vegas might be looking with this selection, their Squids?
I mean, knowing Doug, he's going to want to bring in a guy who's going to, really contribute, and really, be a solid player for them. I mean, they're in need of what looks like a right wing more than anything. They have a lot of left wing and centers on their roster, so if I had to guess, they're going to look at maybe a playmaker or a more physical player to play on that PK unit for them. Guys that kind of stand out from that right wing position, maybe somebody like Taylor Jean Reeves, sniper there. Another guy like Laird, Olith. Man, I probably could have picked any other name and been fine, but I got to shout out some of these guys who Vegas might be taking. I really think they could kind of go in a variety of directions here, but like I said, I'm assuming maybe a right wing and somebody who will either be a scoring type of player, or somebody who's going to be more on their PK unit.
Yeah, for sure. And while you were talking there, I pulled up the experts' latest mock to just see what they might have predicted here for this pick this late here for Vegas. And unfortunately that didn't actually help that much, because this pick was where they had projected Matthew Ousley, who I actually took in the first round. So maybe a bit of a reach for me, but yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. That mock draft doesn't really help as far as seeing what this pick might be, but yeah, definitely a number of ways that Vegas could go. And with that, the pick is in. It is Moscow right winger Corey Minor going to Las Vegas. And that's going to throw the Alaska Arctic Wolves on the clock. Corey is somebody who's been around in the minors for most of this season. There's still probably quite a few players who have been on the minors for a lot of this season that haven't been picked yet. So going to be interesting to see where they fall. But I think Minor here is a fantastic pick. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, as I was saying, a right wing, maybe somebody either more scorer, or somebody who's going to be more defensive guy. And looking at Corey, seeing that grinder build, I mean, it's a shorter guy, 5'9", 228 pounds, so he's going to be able to hold his own and really kind of as I mentioned already, provide that PK unit hopefully with some solid grit. Something that unfortunately Vegas has gone through these last two expansions, are losing guys who have been key contributors. 2 seasons ago they lost their star goalie with twin screw moving to Norfolk, and this past offseason they've lost Eric Davis to Cleveland, a star enforcer for him. So really trying to Doug looking and finding different ways for Vegas to build back in different areas. I think that PK unit, like I said, is one aspect of it that will really help hopefully take Vegas back to the championship, and kind of lead them into a more positive direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, it looks like the Alaska pick has been submitted. That is left defenseman Donovan Defense from the Sydney Whales. I will get that on the spreadsheet here. If you want to maybe give your thoughts there on the Donovan Defense pick. He's an offensive
Yeah.
defenseman from the Sydney Whales.
Donovan is one of those players that has been very active. Was really kind of following the league, and so Krieg is able to kind of bring in once again another very solid active player and somebody who I think is going to be able to contribute. Maybe not this season, as he plays a little bit lower on the pairing list for Alaska, but somebody who's definitely going to be able to be a solid locker room presence, be able to when he is on the ice, play well. And then, as he's there in Alaska, just kind of continues to build and hopefully get better and, grow as Alaska grows. And maybe they'll, end up making another postseason run, even though they lost a couple of good D-men this past offseason.
Yeah, and that Donovan Defense, I think he was kind of thinking he might go a little earlier than this, but that's kind of like I mentioned with earlier with the Baltimore Ravens kind of comparison, just good players falling into the lap of Alaska, and great pick there for the Arctic Wolves. And with that, we do have the Cleveland pick already, so we will get that pick announced. It is DZ Breezy, Z for Breezy if you're using Canadian pronunciation, but DZ for Breezy, the left winger from Tokyo going to Cleveland. And a little bit of fun fact about this as we see Melbourne heading on the clock. Once more here, Fabrizi, he's been good friends with Eric Davis for about 25 years apparently, and he resides in Cleveland. So this kind of fits. It seemed like kind of a match made in heaven, if you will. As yeah, he's another one of those ones that has a good connection, a strong connection with the owner there in Cleveland, and actually does live in Cleveland. So it's always good to play for your hometown team. What are your thoughts on another Tokyo player going off the board with Fabrizi here, Squibs?
Hey, I mean, it sounds like he ain't nothing but a hound dog. All right, it was a little too good to pass up there. Obviously, as we've talked about throughout most of this draft, getting a guy in that a team owner or team staff or really anybody on the team knows is going to go and kind of carry a lot of value just because you're able to bring them in. You want guys who are going to be active, guys who are going to be committed. I mean, thinking back to Turkey, we had Jake Anderson join on season one, part of the way through, and a guy like that is going to be committed to your team all the way till the end. So, we've heard throughout all these expansions and free agency, guys who are saying like, if I end up going anywhere else, I might look at retiring. So, there's a lot of loyalty in this league with friends and family of joining. You look over there at Glasgow and it seems like Otis is bringing in a new family member every other day. So Jess is doing a great job, recruiting for the league, but also recruiting for his own team. So a very solid pick there by Eric. Bringing another guy in from Tokyo. So looks like Melbourne has made their selection. Evan, if you want to go ahead and make that announcement.
Yeah, this is another very active player. As we know, activity is king in sim leagues. So the Melbourne Marauders have selected Steve Vare of the Sydney Whales, right defenseman, as they continue to fill out that blue line. Like I mentioned, activity is king here in these leagues, and that's going to be a great addition to the Marauders blue line. Yeah, and just going back to Fabrizi for a second, Doug has pointed out to me that he was actually also here in season one with Vegas apparently as a different player as Dustin Zek. So another one of those players that we've seen know quite a bit about. Obviously, being here since the beginning, taking a short break and coming back as a new player. So, and yeah, of course, you mentioned Jake Anderson in Turku. He's a guy I've known in real life for about 22 years, maybe. So yeah, most of my life I met him in first grade. So yeah, those types of connections obviously the fact that he's been here since season one, even with a short break, is a big asset for them. But Steve Vera was a player that came in and was on my radar if we needed a defenseman, just because of that activity level. Even though he came in later in the season, he did play for Sydney, and yeah, he's a really positive guy. I think he's going to be a great addition to that Melbourne locker room. What are your thoughts there on Steve Vera, and then maybe if you want to announce that Reapers pick after that?
Yeah, Steve was, a guy that part of the reason we were taking so long is, we were talking about him. I know him from, quite a few different hockey fantasy leagues that we're in together. So, initially when I reached out to him, he thought I was actually sending him a trade offer. So, obviously, Steve is a great person, very active across all the leagues he's in, is a great hockey mind. Obviously, hockey isn't the only thing that, people talk about in Goals. Obviously he's in a couple other football, and other fantasy leagues. So, overall, just a very active guy that, Melbourne's able to bring in, add to that defensive unit. And, Melbourne might be building one of the most active defensive units in the league. Might not be the best at the moment, but at least in terms of activity, they're definitely up there. So, but with carrying on with the draft, I believe we have Tennessee on the clock after San Diego. That is correct. San Diego takes right defenseman Tim Hortons. Evan, do you want to talk about Tim Hortons?
Yeah,
and not the restaurants.
Yeah. Well, I was just gonna to make that reference. Tim Hortons, the restaurant, which seems like what this player is named after, was named after a player from a long time ago for the Leafs named Tim Horton. So, adding that S on the end of the name kind of makes it remind people, I guess, a little bit more of the coffee shop that's popular up here in Canada. I know it's in the States a little bit, but they're all over the place here, and yeah, so the name rings a bell for a lot of Canadians. It's somebody who's newer to the league, hasn't been around for that long yet. So um yeah, we'll see how he does. Technically he's listed, I guess, as part of the Alberta Prospects roster, even though he never played for them. He did play in the showcase a little bit. And yeah, maybe do you want to give your thoughts on that? It looks like we might be having a trade offer come or trade call come through. So if you want to maybe talk about Tim Hortons, and then I guess what Tennessee might be doing with this pick coming up.
If there's a trade, that over's hitting, and maybe that's a bad beat for any of the bettors out here making draft prop bets. So regardless, though, Tim Hortons, a fantastic build. Somebody that we were talking about in our office. So San Diego being able to grab him when he did, very solid draft selection choice there by San Diego. Once again, San Diego coming in with, I believe, one D-man coming into the draft, really very D-heavy draft needed. And so, I feel like I'm constantly saying after every San Diego pick, this is a fantastic selection for him. So maybe, just my need of D-men myself and talking with a lot of them, seeing, some of these guys go as well, just carries, quite a bit of weight. So, Evan, how's that trade offer looking as we wait for Tennessee?
Yeah. Yeah, so turns out this trade was made purely for the bettors out there, as it does not impact the on the clock trades. So Tennessee is still on the clock with a little under 3 minutes to go. But it is the 8th round pick, second overall, or second pick of the 8th round is going to Albuquerque in exchange for the 9th round pick going to Melbourne. So obviously Melbourne, that pick would be a goalie anyway because they can wait till the end with all the other teams having their goaltender in place. So with that, we have hit the over on the trades. Bad beat for anybody who took the unders. And they do, yeah, they made comments on me laughing on air. Apparently they're laughing their ass off as well. So yeah, a little bit of a trade there just to get that goaltender picked one pick later. and whatever goaltender Melbourne has their eyes on will now become Mr. Irrelevant in the draft as they make a minor trade there. As Tennessee has about a minute and 40 seconds or so left on the clock. What are your thoughts on that trade for the betters' benefits or demise?
Well, I mean, maybe that's why they don't allow sports betting and real life sports. A little too much impact there. So, regardless, though, I mean, if Cam, Mikey, or anybody else there had the overhit, and you definitely got to make a move to make sure you ensure that. So, regardless, though, definitely, just one of those trades that you kind of take a moment and just kind of laugh about. Has no real impact just because Melbourne's not going to get sniped by Albuquerque. Albuquerque's not going to get sniped by Melbourne. Just a very simple switch. If I'm not mistaken, I believe there might have been a goalie who was either Mr. Irrelevant or really close to it in our very first draft. Evan, you want to talk about just how goalies have been, I guess, throughout the draft?
Yeah, for sure. And really quick on the betting implications of that pick. Luckily, the prop bets, there was no sort of progression points tied to winning it. There was no actual, money or anything tied to it. So it doesn't really impact the anything other than just, somebody picking the under who now kind of lost out on that point, but it didn't come with any actual reward. So it's just for fun, just for some laughs. Yeah, and goaltenders in the startup draft, I remember I selected Tyler Cross somewhere around the middle point, and then that allowed, I think it was Detroit, to wait till the very end, and they got James Bass, who turned out to be pretty good for them for a while until they moved on to Rose. And yeah, so there was that, and then obviously in the second draft, the first real rookie draft, we saw Josh Young go fourth overall, and then we saw Brody taken a little bit later. In a league where you can't take your backup goaltenders or anything like that, once everybody else has their goalie, you can wait till the very end to make a pick there. So now obviously with Lashinger and Lasek going, Melbourne can wait till the end and make their goaltender pick last without having to worry about being sniped. So yeah, and obviously last season we saw two teams needed goalies entering the draft, and both of them were they waited till pretty much the very end, and they both kind of had their guys in mind and knew who the other one was taking. So neither of them were at real risk of being sniped. So it's one of those things where sometimes goalies slide a little further than maybe they'd want, but it's not something to take personally or take against your player's value. It's just teams being smart with the capital they have and the risk of other teams taking their picks. But with that, we have the Tennessee Black Bears on the clock, or pick has been made, and that is Khalil Thomas. I don't know if Dave is available or if CGQ wants to hop down here, and if one of you guys want to maybe talk for a second about the Khalil Thomas pick as Boston goes on the clock.
All right, I can talk about this for a couple seconds.
Sure.
So we needed another strong backbone on our defense because I like to have. I don't know. I'm a defensive-minded coach, as you can tell by our already strong defense with our 480 overalls. I'm including Dave on that one. But looking at Khalil, he just has the defensive awareness that I like to see for a two-way defenseman. And I like that he can also play some offense. So he kind of checks off multiple boxes for me, especially with my the way I like my defenseman builds.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a huge asset, and I believe he's pretty active as well. So it's gonna be a nice get for you guys in Tennessee. Squibs, did you maybe want to take the reins and announce the Boston selection?
You're only doing this to me just because I messed up really bad saying it the first time.
Real coincidence, I promise.
With the sixth pick in the fifth round, Boston selects Laird Olif. I'm totally sorry if I'm totally missaying it again, but it happens. Anyways, it's a right winger, sniper. Just kind of once again, Boston up there building out that forward unit. So definitely somebody who build and overall wise definitely could have been taken a bit earlier. But once again, very deep draft. So very solid. player it looks like and a pick for him. But with that, we'll put Norfolk on the clock for the 8th pick. Evan, do you want to talk a little bit more, just about custom teams in the league and how that transition happened after season 2 and how that's really kind of grown the league itself?
Yeah, and some people might not be the biggest fans of going custom, as I know some people kind of enjoyed the early days when we were playing as NHL teams, but this kind of gives us a little bit more freedom to have a bit more of a social media presence, an online presence with a website that we've been working on a little bit behind closed doors. So it kind of opens up the doors for us to get a little more creative with our league content, without breaking any sort of copyright rules or laws or anything like that. So yeah, and it also adds a lot of fun and customization to the league. And when the pro league announced that we were going custom, a lot of excitement around it, and the minors were kind of not going to be custom until I was kind of doing it most of the minor stuff myself, and I was like, you know what, we can take this thing custom and kind of really embrace it and enjoy it. So it's been a lot of fun having these custom teams. And Turku, we just announced our new alternate jerseys for next season and kind of going like a blackout style, and we're really excited to roll those out on the ice. So when we have that kind of power over branding, I think it makes for a lot more fun and customization in the league. And we see maybe a little less jersey options each game as we only get home, away, and alternate with custom teams, but it allows for a little bit more creativity from the teams themselves, and that's always good. You like to see that sort of personality added. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and announce this Norfolk pick as we round out round 5, and that is Xavier McDonald. And really quick before I throw it over, that's a left winger from Saskatoon, by the way. Really quick before I throw it over to Squibs for his thoughts on this, you might notice the rounds start to kind of get condensed and maybe be a little shorter. That's just because each team has certain needs and picks that maybe as Turku we had the 9th pick of each round by default, but we only had 3 needs, so our 4th round, 5th round, etc. picks became obsolete. So that's why these rounds, as we go through the drafts, start to get a little shorter. You'll see some of the later rounds only have a pick or 4 picks or whatever the case is. So Squibs, did you want to maybe weigh in on your thoughts on Xavier McDonald?
Yeah, I mean, sniper build, 56 overall, 6 foot, 190 pounds. Guy's hopefully going to kind of be a little speedy, but still have a little bit of that durability. Something that smaller players, Grizzly Bear, Ani Escola, a couple others kind of struggle with. Guys that who are smaller but have that great speed to start up, and really kind of able to get out and score quickly on those breakaways. We always talk about how breakaways work in Chell, so it's always fun to watch. McDonald, though, he has a little bit more height and a little bit more weight on it, so he might start out a little slower, but as he works there and trains hard, he's going to end up more than likely working on that speed and one day getting better at that, and so hopefully being able to net quite a bit of goals. So as we're waiting for Cleveland to make their selection, I guess what are you thinking they're going to do here with it?
Yeah, Spock's kind of talked earlier about having guys in mind for who they wanted later in the draft, and you got to think when you're looking ahead to the later rounds of the draft, you kind of have certain players in mind, whether that's you have connections with them or you just kind of expect them to slide a little bit. So I wouldn't be surprised knowing that they kind of had some certain targets later in the draft to see some newer players back here. So some players that joined kind of after the minors playoffs had ended, maybe played a game or two for the prospects or the noobs, or maybe didn't even play until the showcase or if at all. I mean, they could take an established player here, but it would not shock me at all to start seeing some of these newer players come this late in the draft, as teams are a little more willing to take risks on players without that proven track record, and maybe guys that
Well,
they know from other leagues.
Well, Evan, not to cut you off, and not mean to steal your thunder or anything, but this next pick, you could definitely say is a steal. The first pick of the 6th round, center Sly Cooper, taken by the Cleveland Hounds. Talking to Sly, he is a raccoon who steals from the people who really don't need it, but also had it coming. So you might, get a laugh out of, Evan and I talking about Sly's name. And if you're wondering what I mean by a raccoon, no, he's not Coco Raccoon. Sly is, in paying homage to Sly Cooper, the video game. Talking to him, talking to Sly, the person. He, was somebody who was very interested in the league, very active, and definitely, a solid person and a solid pick there by Cleveland. So, Evan, any thoughts on Sly?
Yeah, I have quite a few thoughts on Sly. First off, you mentioned the name. Last week I was at my parents' house for my mom's birthday dinner and kind of dug up some of our old video games and borrowing their Wii and things like that. And I came across my old PS2 game for Sly Cooper, and I brought it home in case I wanted to play it because Sly Cooper, for those that don't know, it's a bit of an older game. Like I mentioned, PS2. I think there's some PS3 versions as well. He's a raccoon thief, and I love the name that he picked, and I had great conversations with him, and I don't know how many people remember last season where when I got sniped with Carl Sylvester being taken right before us, and my face was clipped by Joey Rab or by Adam Banks, sorry, as I got sniped live on air, and I think that this was one of those ones where my face might have given something away. I was hoping, it's great for Sly to see him in the pros, but I was really hoping he'd slide until until the affiliation rounds, and he would have been a high target for us in Turkey to bring him in as a minor league affiliate and possibly promote to the pros when an opening arose. So it sucks to see him taken here, but from a personal standpoint, but I'm really excited to see him in the pros. He deserves it. He's new to the league, but super active. And as I was talking about Cleveland, taking maybe a newer player here, he was the one player that I was counting the picks left and hoping that he might slide out of it and be available for me, and that's in that affiliation draft. So that kind of nice pick there for Cleveland. A great active player. I think he's going to be a huge asset to their team. And with that, we have yet another Tokyo player coming off the board. Center Kane Russell, a sniper out of Tokyo, going to Melbourne, and that's going to throw San Diego up on the clock. What are your thoughts on the Kane Russell selection there by Mikey and co there in Melbourne?
Goodness, Kane is a guy down there in Tokyo who definitely feel should have been taken a lot sooner. Loved him as a player, loved him as a person, and so had great talks with him. He was on my short list of guys to call up when we called up Guy earlier in the season. So see him fall this late in the draft. It's a great pick by Melbourne. Russell, like I said, definitely deserved to be higher. So maybe he'll go out and play a little Cain and Abel this coming season and really wreak havoc on anybody who passed on him this season or in this draft. So, you want to carry on some of your thoughts there?
Yeah, Kane's somebody who I'm a little bit surprised was still available this late. As a sniper, I think he's a sniper build anyway. As a sniper, being taken as a center, snipers start a little lower with the face-off grades. So he did play on the wing quite a bit for Tokyo this season, if I'm not mistaken, with Annie Leonhardt there controlling their lines, and he really excelled whether you played him up the middle or down the wing, and that's going to be a great pick for Melbourne this late in the draft to get a guy with that much progression under his belt and that much of a scoring ability. He's going to be really dangerous playing down there in Australia. Moving on to the San Diego selection. This player is somebody who's been around in the league since season one, took a short hiatus and came back, but was on Alaska, decided to scrap his player and recreate in the minors, and that is Isaiah Fowler. And for those of you watching out there, there's a good chance that you were brought into this league by Fowler. He was a huge part of our massive growth that we saw in seasons 2 and 3. He had some big recruiting, so it's great to see him taken here in the main draft. He'll get a chance to play for San Diego. Fowler's been around for a while. What are your thoughts with him, your interactions with him, and kind of general opinion on this selection there, Squibs?
No, I mean, Fowler was one of those guys that, even though he retired part of the way through the season, kind of left Alaska, in a bit of a bind. He restarted as a sniper, and I think, it kind of goes without saying, at any time, if you're not happy with your player, I mean, go ahead and retire and restart. It's never too late to just kind of give up on who you are as a player in goals. As the actual player and kind of restart, however you want that to be. Or, in certain instances, you're able to kind of build out progressions to become, a different type of player if you're a certain, build. And, with this pass and shoot option that, NHL has implemented in 23, like it's definitely, able to provide a little bit more flexibility with, maybe a power forward who, shoots more or a sniper that shoots less and so on and so forth. But Fowler's one of those guys who's going to be super active. Matt Green has Noah Bake, Isaiah Fowler, and a whole slew of D guys, and as well as a solid goalie over there. So he's building a very active locker room, and hopefully going to be a very solid one. As we were talking, Boston has made their selection though. They have taken Wayne Crosby, prospect center. With that, Evan, that now puts Albuquerque?
Cleveland Hounds. Cleveland Hounds.
Cleveland for round 7. I skipped around. Cleveland for round 7. Almost near the end. Evan, you want to talk about Wayne Crosby?
Yeah, obviously you mentioned you skipped around. We have just about 6 picks left here or so getting right down to it now. And Wayne Crosby, he's a newer player to the league, and he combined Wayne Gretzky and Sidney Crosby names. I would assume that has to be the inspiration behind his name. And anytime you kind of use those caliber of names, you're kind of bringing a level of expectation onto your player and expecting great things coming from you. So, we'll see what he's able to produce. He is a center, again listed as an Alberta prospect, but I don't think he played a single game for them. He would have played in the showcase though. He had a decent showing, if I'm not mistaken. That was a lot of games over 3 days to kind of keep track of. But, he looked good. I think he's going to be a good asset for Boston. And with that, we do have the next selection, and that is coming in for the Cleveland Hounds at the first pick of the 7th round. The name's going to sound familiar to all you Office fans out there. It is right defenseman Dwight Schrute coming to Cleveland to join the Hounds and anchor that blue line as they have filled out their roster. What are your thoughts on Dwight Schrute? I don't know if you're an Office fan there, Squibs, but what are your thoughts on that selection by Cleveland?
7 out of 10 attacks come from behind, so hopefully those 3 out of 10 attacks are him scoring. Of course, Dwight, is very active in the chat ever since he joined as a player. So hopefully, he'll continue that, and Cleveland building can continually, bring in guys that are, hopefully going to really help their expansion efforts and really kind of go, a long way in building a solid group. And like I said, 7 out of 10 attacks are behind, so hopefully he doesn't get smacked in the face by Jim. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of The Office. I love the name there. I don't know much about him, but he seems pretty active so far. I think he came over as one of the VHL recruitment members when we kind of struck that partnership deal with the VHL. So, I think it's going to be a great pick there for Eric and the rest of Cleveland. And, if Triple H, for example, is any indication as to the activity level we can expect to see from those VHL members, I think that's going to be a fantastic pick for the back end of Cleveland's roster. And with that, we are moving on to the Melbourne pick. Did you want to announce that one there for you?
Yeah. Before we announce it, we'll now go ahead and put San Diego on the clock for their pick in the 7th round. With the second pick in the 7th round, Melbourne selects left wing Beef Supreme out of Vancouver. Evan, you want to break that pick down for us?
Yeah, you know what? That's another great pick here from Melbourne. you see all these other teams late in the draft here. They're taking some flyers on these newer players that maybe don't have a ton of progression under their belt, and Melbourne's just kind of cleaning up the rest of these guys that have been around since the start and for some reason slid to the end. And now you see teams picking based on connections and stuff, and hoping that they can get some active guys in the room. Um and Melbourne with their last couple of picks have picked real talented players that have been in the minors all season and been progressing. So definitely a real dangerous looking teams forming so far there in Australia. And yeah, I'm excited to see what Mikey and Phil and the rest of their team can put together with some of these guys that they're grabbing with all this progression under their belt. What are your thoughts, I guess, on what Melbourne has been able to do now that their last pick is going to be their goaltender? The rest of their roster has been filled up.
No, I mean, building, your team in front of your goaltender can always be a very solid thing. And looking at the goaltenders that remain, there's still some very solid options, and guys who definitely should have been taken sooner. I mean, if you watch Tony Puckstoppers play in the minors playoffs, it was exceptional. I mean, it was fantastic. And you got a guy like Ben Bishop. Obviously, a lot of people there know who that is from real life hockey. Another solid guy, as well as JT Waters, who might not be the highest rated overall, but as a hybrid build, that's always a very solid build. 6'2" and 185 pounds. So Melbourne being able to build, any sort of solid, forward group or defensive group in front of their goaltender will go a long way, especially with a rookie goaltender. We know from experience, having a rookie goaltender, their confidence can get shaken easily if they get lit up a couple of times throughout the season. So, putting in some type of protection, hopefully for them, will go a long way. But San Diego has made their pick, which now will put Boston onto the clock. Hopefully with this pick, he doesn't get slapped around too much. San Diego selects Chris Rock, right defenseman. Everyone hates Chris, but hopefully this one doesn't turn out so badly. Evan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, you had to throw that jab in there and slapped around too much. And back to back, we saw player creations of Chris Rock and Will Smith. So Will Smith, we haven't seen come off the board yet, but yeah, that's Chris Rock seemed active so far, and he played really well in the showcase. As a blue liner, he had a goal one game, he had an assist in the very next game, so probably a couple more points there throughout the tournament, and a real strong showing for him in his first attempt on the ice here. And that's kind of San Diego. Looks like they're filling out a very active room. Even just looking at the last four picks that are up on the draft board right now, with Fowler, Hortons, and Sauv to join Rock here. They're very, very active players, and I think that's going to bode well for San Diego. Only taking one defenseman in the expansion draft, you kind of had to expect that they might be building for a season or two. And this team, with the activity levels they've got with Green and Alejandro and Bake and Cerrone and all these other guys, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with in a couple seasons if they all stick around. Next up, we have the Boston selection, and that is left winger from the Sydney Whales, CD's Nuts. And yeah, it's one of those names that if you're going to say it out loud, you want to say it a little slower than I just did. But nonetheless, the newest Boston Ward unicorn, is Nuts. What are your thoughts on that selection there, Squibs, and how Boston seemed to have filled out their roster?
I mean, you can see these doing really well in Boston. Anyways, Boston, Eric over there is running a fantastic ship to this point. CDs as a playmaker, very solid build, coming off the wing. Hopefully, will provide, great passing ability to set up any of their snipers. So, I think Boston's building or has built at this point now a very solid squad as we head into our final two picks. And actually, as we speak about that, Albuquerque has submitted their picks. Evan, if you want to take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. So Albuquerque's pick with the only pick of the 8th round, they have selected left winger from the Moscow Snowhawks, Corbin Demars. So congratulations to Corbin DeMars being the last skater selected, as Melbourne now is on the clock, needing just a goaltender. What are your thoughts on the DeMars pick there, Squibs, and what what Albuquerque was able to do tonight?
I was excited. I thought Mars was going to fall to affiliation. I was very high on him as an enforcer. I mean, one of the better enforcers. When Krieg ran the season-long sim, Demars was just nothing but a goon in that sim. So, I mean, it was a very solid. He's a very solid player, and based on just from watching him talk and interact with other people, he seems like a very smart hockey guy. So, Albuquerque definitely bringing in a very solid piece. And like I said, I really hated seeing him go. I was talking to my staff and I was like, hey, this is definitely a guy we need to work on and target for the affiliation draft. But fantastic pick there by Albuquerque, and can't get enough of seeing these guys go and seeing other guys that definitely should have been that haven't gone yet. So over to you, Evan.
Yeah, so the last pick left on the clock here was the Melbourne Marauders. They have taken their goaltender. We do have a couple things to talk about before the draft, before we shut down this show, so don't tune out just yet if you're watching. But the final selection here of the entry draft is goaltender JT Waters, being selected from the Sydney Whales. He will be the rookie netminder to anchor that Melbourne Marauders roster. So congratulations to him and the rest of that team. They now have filled out their 19-player roster as we prepare for the affiliation draft next week. What are your thoughts on the Waters pick just before we get to some housekeeping items towards the end here, Swift?
Yeah, Waters was, as I was just saying, a fantastic build, a 6'2", 185 pounds. Really solid player. Unfortunately didn't get to watch too much of the Vancouver games, so, or I guess Sydney games at that point. But regardless, I think, building, a solid foundation for your goaltender and wherever you want to go as a team is, really kind of key, especially since we don't get to have any backups or anything. You know, Seeing, a guy like Ben Bishop and Tony Puckstopper still on the board, I really hope that they're able to continue to stick around in the league, play, another season in the minors, or whenever goalies can become affiliated, they'll be able to and whatnot. So looking at those two guys that went undrafted, as well as then all the goalies that we already have that weren't eligible for the draft, I really think that whichever class is next for the goalies, it's going to be a very solid and deep class. So regardless, Waters was a great pick, as well as then everybody else still on the board is going to be solid for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. This upcoming affiliation draft is going to be really interesting. There were some surprising non-picks here. As I'm just seeing in some of the chats, Ryan Jones went unpicked. Jacob Illich went unpicked. Like, these are some star players, and that just kind of shows how deep this draft is. And you get a couple people with connections to certain teams, and these stars can slide a little, and these players are going to have to start next season in the minors, and it's going to make some high quality minor league hockey to start next season, and it's going to be real interesting. So just a couple of things to talk about here before we close out. So we're going to reveal the order of the affiliation draft. We have a weighted lottery here. We're going to use the help of Axis's Dave's nice video graphics he made for each team to reveal that order. But really quick, another rule I didn't mention at the start that kind of impacted how teams were drafting a little bit is salary cap. And so cap is based on overall at the time of signing. And you can only go up to the soft cap if you don't want to spend any incentive penalties, or you can go 20 over that, up to 20 over that. And for every 1 point you go over that, you spend 2 of your future incentive points. So that's something the teams were working within. The cap was 12.7, I think, was the soft cap this season. So, Alaska, for example, needed 5 players and they had to average 59 overall or lower to stay under it, and I think they managed to do that. So that was something that teams were working with that maybe you didn't see behind, from a viewer's perspective. But that's one of the many things that kind of goes into the team management side. While I got this lottery set up here, Squibs, did you want to maybe talk about what impact the the salary cap might have had on you and your draft plans or free agency plans?
Yeah, so last season, when we had our expansion draft, we really kind of focused on, I guess me at the time, really focused on bringing in guys, um, you know, that were maybe lower overall that were going to be really solid. We really focused on building in the draft. I think we actually took 10 guys in the draft, or actually after free agency, I think it was 8 guys after the draft, or something along those lines. So we really focused on building our squad to have a lower salary cap and signing guys, who were lower overalls that that we could possibly use to either keep ourselves and have a low salary cap for a few seasons, or possibly trade away for a better player, better current player at the time, just because some teams couldn't afford their caps and in coming into this upcoming season, or this previous off season. And so, I really think, evaluating that and just seeing where we stood then, and seeing where we were, this past off season, being able to re-sign everybody that we wanted to, really kind of put us into a solid position. And we're already planning for next year on, how can we, navigate the cap and make sure, that we're able to re-sign everybody who wants to be here, and then, handle it the best that we can. So thankfully, built it last year, so we didn't have to worry about it too much. And maybe we'd be in a position to sign some of these higher level free agents that are unfortunately going to be outpriced due to their team salary cap position.
All right, so time to get to the affiliation draft order. Okay, now, sorry, David's talking to my ear now or after the lottery here. Okay, Craig, did you want to come on now and say a few words?
You can do the draft lottery. I'll talk after.
Okay, sounds good. So we'll do the affiliation lottery. Sorry for the mix up there, guys. And so basically we kind of weighted a lottery where the top teams had a lower shot at it, but it's pretty equal across the board. But the worst placed team, Tennessee, and the 4 expansion teams have the best odds at the high picks. Any team though can land anywhere from 1 to 16. So I'm going to do the lottery here on my computer. I'll mention the pick, and Dave will click the video graphic here for each team, and we'll kind of talk about it as we go. Hopefully, not spend too much time on this. But so the 16th pick in the affiliation draft lottery, or in the draft, will be the Florida Challengers. They will be picking last in the affiliation draft. Again, the affiliation draft will be 4 rounds, 16 picks per round. Some trades have already happened. Each team is going to leave the affiliation draft with 4 total affiliates, though. The 15th pick will be the Dublin Dragons. They will be picking second last as last season's champions. So congratulations again on that championship run, but they will be picking second last in the affiliation draft. Number 14 is the Alaska Arctic Wolves. So Krieg, who's going to be coming on in a minute here, he's going to be having the third last pick in the affiliation draft. So far, some of the top teams falling at the end here, which makes sense. The 13th pick, this one fell quite a bit. It's going to be the Florence Firebirds, falling all the way from what would be the 6th pick or so, falling to the 13th pick. So that's a tough break for Squibs and company. Number 12, I fell a bit as well. Turku. The Turku Finns falls 3 spots from 9 to 12. So that's another one of the top teams that's going to be moving up a few slots here. Again, the affiliates will be in the minors, so it's not going to have an immediate impact on our rosters, but it could have an impact down the road. Now, number 11, the Jacksonville Vipers will be picking 11th in the affiliation draft rounds. I think they traded one of their affiliation picks already.
That one's traded.
Yeah, that one is at least one of their picks is traded. And remember, this is the order for all 4 rounds. We're just doing this once. Number 10, an expansion team falls all the way from 4th or 5th to 10th, and that is the San Diego Reapers. They will be picking 10th in the expansion draft. Now we have pick number 9. Yeah, moving a little quick there as the graphic has ended. The Las Vegas Sinners, who actually made a semifinal appearance last season, climb all the way up to picking 9th in the expansion draft, and now, or so the affiliation draft, and now we have 8 picks to go. Number 8 is the Glasgow Blackwatch, right where they would be as the best non-playoff team, so they don't fall or move up at all. So Glasgow picking 8th. Number 7 is Albuquerque Pharaohs. They moved up to 3 spots from 10 to 7, as the Albuquerque Pharaohs will be picking 7th in the upcoming affiliation draft. And number 6 is going to be the team that finished in 12th place last season, the Tennessee Black Bears, picking 6th in the upcoming affiliation draft. So there are 3 expansion teams left, 2 existing teams. Picking number 5 is going to be a playoff team from last season. That is the Redwater Undertakers, picking number 5 in the affiliation draft as they move up quite a bit. So a nice jump for Redwater. Now, number 4 will be the last of the remaining existing teams, and that is the Norfolk Navigators, picking number 4 in the affiliation draft. So congratulations to them, moving up a couple of spots there, I think from 7 or so to 4. Number 3 is the expansion team, the Boston War Unicorns, picking number 3 in the upcoming affiliation draft. And what are the odds? But the 2 teams that it was down to for the original draft lottery are the last 2 teams picking, or to be determined here in this draft here. Number 2 is going to be the Melbourne Marauders, yet again, finishing 2nd in a draft lottery. And of course, that means that the first overall pick in the affiliation draft lottery, or in the affiliation draft, belongs to the Cleveland Hounds, who did win the original lottery as well, ended up trading that pick to San Diego. So congratulations to Cleveland again for winning yet another draft lottery. Some good luck there. Yeah, so I guess that wraps up the affiliation draft lottery. Craig, did you want to hop on and say a few words?
Yeah, for sure. First, I would like to say thanks to Chris Lee and Winkler. They were the ones helping me behind the scenes while I was at work. Also, welcome to the team: Wiseman, Buffalo, Bottom, Meeks, Partridge, and defense. We're gonna win the cup this year. Just letting you guys know right now. It's a thing. But no, good job, Dave. Thanks for setting this all up. Very much appreciated to Dave, Squibs, and Evan. Thank you again for putting this all together. You guys are on the screen the whole time. What is this? 3 hours and 20 minutes we're on right now, and you guys constantly talking, giving your feedback, and everybody. For everybody else to come on the show and talk, to give you guys some breaks. Thank you. This is probably the best draft we had, which Dave said it. He was going to up his self from last time, which he definitely did. No, Minion, I don't think you were drafted, buddy. Sorry, I saw the chat. But yeah, man, it was all around good job. I tried to catch as much as I could. I'm glad we did it. I wish I could have been around more for it, but unfortunately, work things. But Evan and Squibs, you guys can close this out. I gotta go do more work things. So I'll talk to you guys later.
For sure, yeah. Thanks for hopping on and saying a few words. Squibs, did you have any final thoughts before I close things out here on how the draft went? Maybe any thoughts on your team falling to pick 13 of the affiliation draft, and just in general how the the evening went for everyone.
Evan, I got to say, I was a fan of you up until about 5 minutes ago. I think you need to rerun that. So, joking, of course. I think regardless though that this draft was phenomenal. From the technology that Dave put into it and the work that he put into it, as well as ourselves, Evan. Not to give myself a pat on the back or anything, but uh, I know that we, really put time and effort into this. The week leading up to it, we really focused on, trying to take as much time as we could to learn, about these prospects and in an aspect that so we could talk at least enough about them to, highlight each and every one of them that came up. So, we talked through 75 different players. And we're going to talk through another math is hard, so don't quote me on it. 64 players maybe. Coming up, if we're going to do a draft show for it, which I assume we might be doing, but I don't want to confirm that to be the case. I'll let Evan do that. So, regardless, though, there's a lot of talent still available in the affiliation draft. I'm looking forward to it from my standpoint. I'm looking forward to seeing, who we might be able to get then, and who we might be able to, supplement our youth program, and where Gohls will continue to go. I mean, we're not even a year into Gohls being a league, and we just had, I think, one of our best drafts to this point. So, fantastic lead, phenomenal to been a part of this draft, and I'm very happy to be here as an owner and as a player. So, thanks to everybody who's made it a fantastic time up to this part. So, Evan, I'll kick it to you for the final talk of the evening.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks first off to everybody who came on as a guest tonight. Hopefully, we got everyone on who wanted to talk. Your contributions are much appreciated, especially when things get a little hectic here, and we need somebody to kind of take the mic for a few minutes. And so much appreciated there. Big thanks to the league front office. Emilia Rose as our director of player and personnel. Eric and Doug, my fellow deputy commissioners, and of course Craig, who we heard just a minute ago, as our main commissioner there. So thank you guys for all the work you guys put in behind the scenes, making this league great. Streaming games, whatever it is. Huge thanks to Squibs for hosting tonight with me. Earl Flint, so obviously Dave made those video graphics, but those round circle graphics that we saw come on the board whenever somebody was on the clock. Those are all courtesy of Earl Flint, who did a lot of the graphics this season, including our schedule ones and things like that. So huge shout out to him. And yeah, of course, massive thanks to Dave Axis for helping us produce this draft show yet again. He did last season's on maybe a week's notice. And it was, phenomenal. I didn't think he could top it, but of course he comes through again, and with a little more prep time, it's incredible what he was able to work. So huge thank you to Dave for all his work behind the scenes, making this draft possible. And then, of course, to everybody who tuned in tonight to watch, all the players in this league. I think we've got 400 or more players here so far. And like Squibs kind of alluded to, we aren't even a year into this draft yet. Sometime during week 1 or 2 of the regular season, we'll hit our anniversary, which is incredible to think that we grew from, having 6 teams with 15 players each to now having 16 pro teams with 19 players each, and almost 8 full minors teams or whatever it is. And a huge thank you to everybody who's involved in this league. You guys are why we do what we do. We're a players league first, so thank you all for being a part of this. You really make it worth all the work that we put in. So congratulations to the 75 that heard their names called tonight. To those that didn't, look forward to the affiliation draft coming later this week, where a bunch more will be selected. Thank you again, guys, and have a great night.